אפיקי מים, כנפשי תערום אליך אלוקים, כילדה תערום על אפיקי מים, כנפשי תערום אליך אלוקים. צמא נפשי לאלוקים, צמא נפשי לאלוקים, ללחי מתי יבוא וראה לאלוקים והילדה על אפיקי מים, כנפשי תערום אליך אלוקים. צמא נפשי לאלוקים, צמא נפשי לאלוקים, ללחי מתי יבוא וראה לאלוקים כנפשי תערום אליך
שיר למעלות, אשא עיניי אל ההרים, מאין יבוא עזרי, עזרי מעם השם, עושה שמיים וארץ, אל ייתן למות רגליך, אל ינום שומרך, הנה לא ינום ולא ישן שומר ישראל, השם שומרך, השם צילך, על יד ימינך. יומם השמש לא יככה וירח בלילה, השם ישמורך מכל רע, ישמור את נפשך, השם ישמור צאתך ובואך מעתה ועד עולם. שיר למעלות, אשא עיניי אל ההרים, מאין יבוא עזרי, עזרי מעם השם, עושה שמיים ייתן למות רגליך, אל ינום שומרך, הנה לא ינום ולא ישן שומר ישראל, השם שומרך, השם צילך, על יד ימינך. יומם השמש לא יככה וירח בלילה, השם ישמורך מכל רע, ישמור את נפשך, השם ישמור צאתך ובואך מעתה ועד עולם. שומרך, השם צילך, על יד ימינך. יומם השמש לא יככה וירח בלילה, השם ישמורך מכל רע, ישמור את נפשך, השם ישמור צאתך ובואך מעתה ועד עולם. אוי 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 שיר למעלות, תשא עיניי אל ההרים, בואי מאין יבוא עזרי, עזרי מעם השם, עושה שמיים וארץ, אני אתן למות רגליך, אל ינום שומרך. אוי 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 שיר למעלות, תשא עיניי אל ההרים, בואי מאין יבוא עזרי, עזרי מעם השם.
הדרך אל האושר, רואה סופיים מכשולים רבים, עת לחייך, לשמוח גם לדמוע, אך מה יפים יפים הם החיים, זה הזמן לסלוח, לוותר לשכוח, גם אם זה קשה שנינו יחד את הכל עוד נשנה, לא צריך לברוח, את האמת לברוח, אני ואת לא נשנה את העולם הזה, לא צריך לברוח, את האמת לברוח, אני ואת לא נשנה את העולם הזה. את שתי עיניי נושא אני למעלה, מבקש תשובות לשאלה, אין מענה ואיש גם לא יודע האם בסוף הדרך ניפגש. זה הזמן לסלוח, לוותר, לשכוח, גם אם זה קשה שנינו יחד את הכל עוד נשנה. לא צריך לברוח, את האמת לברוח, אני ואת לא נשנה את העולם הזה. לא צריך לברוח, את האמת לברוח, אני ואת לא נשנה את העולם הזה. זה הזמן לסלוח, לוותר, לשכוח, גם אם זה קשה שנינו יחד את הכל עוד נשנה. לא צריך לברוח, את האמת לברוח, אני ואת לא נשנה.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Shabbat Shalom, and welcome to this week's World Alliance of Qara'im Torah study. I am Hakham Melech Rahmiel ben Yaakov of the World Alliance of Qara'im, and we have a very interesting and exciting study for you ahead. Hope you'll enjoy it. So we'll continue studying the book of Malachi, the last book in the canon of the Tanakh. Very interesting book. Often overlooked, as so many of the minor prophets are. So we'll go through, we were up to the end of chapter 2. We'll start there and hopefully get through the rest of the book. And besides that, if we have time, we'll explore the idea of Rosh Hodesh. Rosh Hodesh is usually translated as the new moon or the new month, but let's see what it really means when we explore that phrase in the Tanakh. And then we will hopefully this time finish off Leviticus chapter 23. We have one section left, and that's the laws for the building of the sukkah. We've finished all of the laws of the various holidays. We've read the concluding or the summarizing phrase, the summarizing verse in Leviticus 23, and then tacked onto that are the laws of the building of the sukkah. So we'll talk about that. We'll go to the book of Nehemiah chapter 8, verse 15, which will give us some insight into this. And I can give you a little hint right now. There were no etrogs, no $400 lemons running around ancient Israel. And I'll point you to some resources regarding that. And that's it. So we should have a nice Torah study ahead of us. Thank you all for joining us. And I'll just go ahead with my usual announcements. I don't have really any kind of big monologue to say today, and I want to really focus on Torah. So I will go ahead and say that we are in the process of building a physical World Alliance of Qara'im community here in the Golan Heights in Israel. If you live in Israel and you want to join a physical, an actual face-to-face Karaite community, then please contact me privately and I can give you all of the details. If you live outside of the land of Israel and you want to make aliyah to the land of Israel, and I suggest you do, especially if you're Jewish and living in the United States, which is a ticking time bomb right now, then contact me privately and I can give you all the details. But we're setting up a physical World Alliance of Qara'im Karaite community. It will be communal dinners, communal Torah studies, communal sharing of ideas, prayers, and it's going to be like a family, like an extended family. We're all going to keep an eye out for each other, look after each other, the way a family, an extended family should be. And thank God, I found a really, really nice community that I'm part of here in Katsrin and the Golan Heights. I really love them. They're just so nice and welcoming. And, that should be the blueprint. And I don't intend to disconnect at all from that community. I really enjoy being around them. Really special people, from all of them. And but I want to also set up a Karaite community for those who want to live the true, if we could say it that way, if we could say it that way, the true Torah, right? Maybe that's a little bit presumptuous or a little bit arrogant, but our attempt is to live the Torah. Okay, Suri likes my monologue, so I'll give a little bit of a monologue. So there's a trend in Judaism these days led by a number of rabbis, but a certain rabbi who I used to learn with a lot. I'm not going to mention his name. It doesn't matter. And the trend is, well, regular Judaism is not the real thing. So we're going to go back to the true Judaism. Okay? What is the true Judaism for this guy and this movement? The true Judaism is the Judaism at the time of the Greek and Roman occupation of Israel. It's so insane. It's so nuts when you think about it, that it's an attempt to go back to the source. It's an attempt to travel back in time to recapture the original, but then it's like stopping halfway. It's like saying, you know what? I'm going to drive cross country from New York to California, which I did twice, by the way. Once in 2009, once in 2013, and that's how I met some of you guys, like on that usually come to the talk here, like Antoinette. I don't know if she's here right now, Tony, and a couple of other people. And it's like saying, my goal is to drive across the country and then like stopping in, I don't know, Kansas or something like that, and say, okay, I've done it. Here I am. I've driven across the country. I'm back. I've reached my destination. That's what this movement is like. The movement usually focuses on things like, instead of like, I won't say throwing out, but downgrading the authority of the Babylonian Talmud and upgrading the authority of the Yerushalmi Talmud, the Jerusalem Talmud, defocusing on some of the later rabbis, the Achronim, while at the same time focusing on some of the slightly earlier rabbis, in particular the Rambam. They seem to be very focused on the Rambam, who lived in the Middle Ages and was born in Spain. And really trying to get back to what they would consider original rabbinical Judaism or original Pharisaic Judaism, although some of them will make a distinction between the Pharisaic Judaism and the later rabbinical Judaism. I think that's all semantics. It doesn't really matter. Rabbinical Judaism clearly was an outgrowth of Pharisaic Judaism, even if the rabbis and the Pharisees were not exactly the same. It's irrelevant. But I call them Roman Jews. They're fascinated with the way Judaism was practiced in the time of the Roman and perhaps earlier the Greek occupation of the land of Israel, but really the Roman occupation. So the Romans took over the land of Israel in 63 BCE. There were wars going on between the various factions in the Hasmonean dynasty. The Hasmoneans were basically the descendants or the dynasty established by the Maccabees. And some of the Hasmoneans sided with the Sadducees, tended to side with the Sadducees, and some tended to side with the Pharisees. And in the end, it was the Pharisees that won out. And so there was a particular Hasmonean leader who decided to enlist the help of the Romans in 63 BCE or thereabouts, and asked the Romans to come in and take over the land of Israel from the Hasmonean dynasty. So it was the Pharisees that brought the Romans in to the land of Israel. In fact, we can even maybe bring up my favorite rabbi, the only rabbi that I really trust and the only rabbi that I really follow. His name is Rabbi Wikipedia. He's amazing. He doesn't talk too long. He doesn't babble with 45-minute Divrei Torah. The kiddushes are pretty tasty. Some good kugel and cholent, as my friend Shia back in Brooklyn would say. And so we can look into it a little bit, but the bottom line is it was the Pharisees or the Pharisaic leaning leaders of the Hasmoneans at the behest of the Pharisees that asked the Romans to come in and take over the land of Israel, and they did in the year 63 BCE. How ironic that those same Romans then ended up destroying the Second Temple in the year 70 CE after the 4-year revolt of the Jews against the Romans, which they lost. So the Pharisees have, and later the rabbis have, an obsession with, or I shouldn't say they have an obsession, they lived under Roman occupation, or before that they lived under Hasmonean occupation. No, I won't say Hasmonean occupation. They lived under the Hasmonean dynasty. Before that, they lived under Greek occupation, right? The Greeks took over in the year 332 BCE when Alexander the Great conquered the land of Israel, the Holy Land. So their entire Torah, their entire derivative religion, which they call Judaism, which there are 3 main derivative religions of Torah. One is Islam, the second is Christianity, and the third is Rabbinical Judaism. None of these are Torah religions. They're not Torah based. They're not Torah. None of those 3 religions keep the Torah. They're all derivative religions based on the Torah, right? So they're often called the Abrahamic religions, but they're actually Torah derivative religions. And Rabbinical Judaism, Pharisaic/Rabbinical Judaism, is a derivative religion of true Torah, which is based on the heavy influence of, well, a bunch of different. Did not the Greeks sacrifice pigs at the temple? Yes, they did. That's the Hanukkah story. That's in 165 BCE. We're talking about. That's exactly when the Hasmonean dynasty. That the Hanukkah story is when the Hasmonean dynasty rose, or basically gained independence from the Seleucid Greeks, which had taken over after the death of Alexander the Great. Right. So the Greeks ruled over the land of Israel from approximately 332 BCE. And until the Maccabees freed Israel from the Seleucid Greeks in approximately 165 BCE. Then there was what's called the second independent state of Israel, the third being the one that was founded in 1948, which is still undergoing its evolution or its progress towards true freedom. We're still actually a vassal state of the United States. Okay, fine, better than nothing, I guess. Donald Trump is really the true leader of Israel, which I guess he's better than Benjamin Netanyahu in many ways, but we won't go there. I don't want to talk about modern Israeli politics. What's meant to be will be. So at any rate, so what's called the second independent state of Israel was formed with the Hasmonean takeover of the land of Israel after they conquered and kicked out the Seleucid Greeks in approximately 165 BCE. It's all written about in excruciating detail in the first and second books of Maccabees, which is part of the Apocrypha. You can read it yourself. I would suggest having a very big cup of coffee with you to stay awake, because it can get very detailed at times. And that second independent state of Israel lasted from approximately 165 BCE until 63 BCE, when at the behest of the Pharisees, the Romans came in and took over the land of Israel. So it was the Pharisees, the rabbis, that invited the Romans to come in and take over the land of Israel, and they were more than happy to do so. It was also the Romans who then set up the Synhedria, which later was coalesced into the Lesser Sanhedria, the Lesser Sanhedrins, and the Great Sanhedrin. So the entire Sanhedrin, I've been having a lot of discussions with people over the past couple of weeks about this, including the debate I had with Rabbi Asher Meza of Torah Judaism International, that the Sanhedrin is not a Jewish idea. It's actually a Greek democratic idea. The word Sanhedrin comes from the word synhedrion, which means sitting together, sin together, like synchronicity, like a synagogue. Synagogue means a gathering together. And so Sanhedrin is synhedrion, which means a sitting together. So it's a tribunal of judges where they judged by majority rule, which is not an Israelite idea. It's not a Torah idea. It's a Greek democratic idea. Judge or adjudicating cases by majority vote is a Greek democratic idea, right? Anywho, I digress, as I tend to do at times. My apologies. So in 63 BCE, the Romans came in and basically without a fight took over the land of Israel, and then the land of Israel remained under Roman control until I guess the Roman Empire fell. Then it gets confusing after that. I have to go look it up to be 100% honest, but at least until approximately the year 400, 500, and then was it the Mamelukes that took over? I don't know. I got to go look it up. Or was it the Persian? Yes. The Persians, I think, took over then. It gets confusing at that point. Anyway, so the Romans ruled over the land of Israel for a good 500 years or so. And it was during this period that the Mishnah was written. It was during this period that the Talmud was written. And so the Mishnah and the Talmud are heavily influenced by Roman thought, philosophy, legal codes, ways of thinking, etc. And even if we go before that, then the entire Mediterranean was heavily influenced by Hellenism. Even during the second independent state of Israel run by the Hasmoneans, there was a lot of influence of Hellenism at that time. And so it also began to make its way into what later became Rabbinical Judaism. And then Rabbinical Judaism was originally imported from Babylon, which later became Persia, was taken over by the Persians and the Medians. And the main religion there was Zoroastrianism, which still exists today. So a lot of Zoroastrian ideas, such as dualism, made their way also into later the Mishnah and the Talmud. So the Mishnah and the Talmud are essentially, I call them Babylonian / Greek / Roman Judaism. That's exactly what it is. And so when this rabbi, who shall remain unnamed, but he's kind of the leader of this movement, wants to go back to a more original form of Judaism, which again, in his eyes, means, I guess I'm just paraphrasing it. I'm sure he has a bit more of a complex, set of ideas than this. But the main idea is the downgrading of the Babylonian Talmud and the upgrading of the Yerushalmi Talmud, the Jerusalem Talmud, the downgrading of many of the later rabbis, what's called the Achronim, and the upgrading of the Rambam, because he's supposedly a rationalist. In fact, what he is an apologist for Rabbinical Judaism, an apologist for what the rabbis like to falsely call the oral law. Whenever the rabbis call their form of Judaism the oral law, it is a lie. It's like taking a 2006 Kia, giving it a paint job and slapping a Jaguar logo on it and then selling it as a Jaguar. There is no such thing as a rabbinical oral law. That is a marketing ploy. What it is it's a set of, or it's an approach towards Torah that was developed during Greek / Roman times, and then in order to give it more credence, the rabbis lied and said that these ideas harken back to the time of ancient Israel. In fact, what they try to do is they have a number of clever ways of doing it, and one is they're the so-called Anshe Knesset Gedolah, the members of the Great Assembly. So they invent this false assembly which never existed, called the Great Assembly, where supposedly the final prophets, such as Malachi, which we're going to learn today, Malachi, sat with the earliest rabbis and transferred the knowledge and the prophets transferred the knowledge, or the latest prophets transferred the knowledge to the earliest rabbis. This is a complete lie. There was no such thing as the members of the Great Assembly. This is a rabbinical polemic. This is a rabbinical snake oil, sale of snake oil, in order to sell the idea that rabbinical Judaism has an unbroken chain back to the times of the prophets and ultimately back to the time of Moses. It does not. Obviously, there's some overlap between rabbinical / Mishnaic / Talmudic Judaism and true Torah, just as there's overlap between Torah and Islam. In fact, I might even claim there's more overlap between true Torah and Islam than there is between true Torah and rabbinical Judaism, but that's another story. And there's overlap between Christianity and Torah. It doesn't mean Christianity is Torah. It doesn't mean that Islam is Torah, and it certainly doesn't mean that rabbinical Judaism is Torah. It's not. It's a new religion. It's a derivative religion. I have a good friend who, again, is kind of shy and likes to stay behind the scenes, but very, very intelligent person and very insightful. And he always has said for years, he said that that Muhammad is to Muslims as Jesus is to Christians, as the Talmud is to rabbinical Jews. All three are derivative religions. They're usually called the three major Abrahamic religions of the world, but really they're the three major Torah-derived religions of the world, or Torah-derivative religions of the world. So let's dive in. Let's bring up our favorite rabbi here. And if you need a bar mitzvah or a wedding performed, I don't know, you can speak to him. His name is Rabbi Wikipedia. Okay, I think if you donate like $2, and maybe you get some more access. But let's bring it up. So let's see, Roman takeover of Israel. Not the siege of Jerusalem, the Roman period, Judea, Roman province. Let's see here if it comes up. I know it does. Maybe Judea, Roman province. We can try that. One second. Roman's public conquest of Judea. Let's see. Just give me 1 second here, and then I'll bring it up. We can start here. Let's do this. Okay. Let's read a little bit through this. I'm going to share the screen. So let's share the screen here. And we're going to go to this window over here, Judea, Roman province. Okay. Let's read through it a little bit, and then we'll try to go over to the Wikipedia article that has to do with the Roman takeover of Israel in 63 BCE. So Judea was, we're going to skip this part. Okay, since the Roman Republic's conquest of Judea in 63 BC, which abolished the independent Hasmonean monarchy, those were the Maccabees, or the monarchy that grew out of the Maccabees, Rome maintained a system of semi-autonomous vassalage in the region. Okay. So Judea was a vassal, was a Roman vassal state, and it was administered by local kings and by the Sanhedrin, which was established by the Romans. After Hasmonean ruler Antigonus II Mattathias briefly regained the throne, he was overthrown by Herod, who was appointed king of the Jews by the Roman Senate and ruled Judea until his death in 4 BC. The province's formal incorporation into the Roman Empire was enacted by Augustus in 6 AD. Augustus is the one who followed Caesar, right? Octavian became Augustus, following an appeal by the populace against the misrule of Herod's son, Herod Archelaus. The administrative capital was relocated from Jerusalem to the coastal city of Caesarea Maritima, which is you can see is a modern-day city of Caesarea, which you can visit the old Roman ruins on the Mediterranean coast. Over the 6 decades following the province's establishment, relations between the majority Jewish population and Roman authorities were marked by frequent crises. So, let's see, do we want to go? This is already getting a little bit too late. Let's go to background, okay? Let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger. Background, so Judea, an independent state under the Hasmonean dynasty, was conquered by the Roman Republic in 63 BCE, and that's what we really want to focus on. At that time, it was embroiled in a civil war between Hyrcanus II and Astribulus II. These were two sons of Queen Shlomzion, or Salome Alexandra. Salome Alexandra was the Hasmonean queen over the land of Israel. She sided very squarely with the Pharisees, both vying for the throne. Roman general Pompey intervened, besieging and capturing Jerusalem. In the aftermath, he appointed Hyrcanus II, who sided also with the Pharisees, as ethnarch and high priest, but denied him the title of king. And then we go into later times, but what we really want to focus is, give me 1 more second here, because I know there's a Wikipedia article on it. 1 second, please. Roman conquest of Jerusalem in 63 BC. There we go. Siege of Jerusalem, 63 BCE. So let's read a little bit about that. And we'll see how the Pharisees invited the Romans in. The Pharisees, I believe, wanted to deliberately bring the Romans in. I believe that they deliberately wanted to destroy the Second Temple. The Second Temple was the stronghold of the Sadducees, but more than that, it was the stronghold of the Kohanim and the Levites. The Kohanim and the Levites, as long as they were in power, even through the Hasmoneans were Kohanim, were priests. As long as the priests were in power, then that was a threat to the Pharisees. So what's the best way to destroy the rivals? What's the best way to get rid of the priests who they claimed were corrupt and may have been corrupt? That may have been true. But if you get rid of the temple, if you set up a situation where you're encouraging the Romans to destroy the temple as they did in 70 CE, you can still go, by the way, if you're ever in Jerusalem, you can go to the Western Wall and you can still see rocks, stones that were thrown off of the retaining wall of the temple. The Western Wall is part of that retaining wall that was built by King Herod when he ruled over Israel, the land of Israel. You can see stones from that retaining wall that were tossed off the retaining wall by the Roman soldiers during the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 CE. You can see them lying on the ground, still intact. It's fascinating, and it's right next to the Western Wall. And I highly recommend there's something there called the Davidson Archaeology Center. Davidson Archaeology, something like that. Davidson, I think it's called. It's not called Archaeology Center. Whatever it's called, it's right there. If you go out of the gate from the Western Wall, you'll see the entrance to it. It's right there. I highly recommend going in there and taking a look. You can actually see the stones that the Romans threw off the retaining wall when they destroyed the temple in 70 CE. Okay, so the Pharisees decided, I believe, that the best way to get rid of their rivals, the Sadducees, the best way to get rid of the Hasmonean dynasty, which they despised, the best way to get rid of those who were meant by the Torah to be in charge of the nation of Israel. Who was put in power by the Torah? Who does the Torah empower to lead the nation? Well, the Torah empowers the prophets. By this time, there were no more prophets. The Torah empowers the Davidic dynasty, the dynasty of David. There was no more Davidic dynasty, right? That ended with the Babylonian destruction of the first temple in 586 BCE. But besides that, it's the Kohanim, it's the judges. And in ancient times, judges were either prophets themselves or chosen through prophecy. Later, the kings were chosen through prophecy. So it's the judges, and then it's the Kohanim and the Levites, really the Kohanim. So who was left of the original leadership laid down in the Torah over Israel? Really only the Kohanim. The Davidic dynasty was gone. The prophets were gone. Judges that were chosen by prophecy were gone because there were no more prophets. So you can install your own judges, which is exactly what the Pharisees did. The only thing that was left to get rid of was the Kohanim. And the Kohanim were associated with the Sadducees. The Kohanim were associated with the Hasmonean dynasty because the Maccabees, out of which the Hasmonean dynasty grew, were Kohanim. They were from a priestly family. And in Modi'in, which is kind of between Jerusalem and Tel Aviv in modern day Israel. And so the only thing left was the Kohanim. So what do? You have to get rid of the Kohanim if you want to take over you have to get rid of the Kohanim if you want to take over the nation, if you want to take over leadership of the nation. So how do you get rid of the Kohanim? Well, the best way to do it is to get rid of the temple. No more temple, no more Kohanim. They have no more purpose. They have no more leadership role in the nation of Israel. They're just relegated to kind of a priestly class in name only. So even to this day, the Kohanim in a rabbinical prayer service will come up and bless the people based on the Kohanic blessing that appears in the Torah, but of course they don't bless using the name Yahweh. They bless using the name Adonai, so it's not really even the real blessing. It's not even a blessing really, because you're not blessing in the name of Yahweh. But again, I'm digressing. Let me stick to the main point here. The main point is that the Kohanim are just now relegated to, like, barely a place of honor within the nation of Israel, whereas they were among the leaders sanctioned and laid down by the Torah as being the leadership over the nation of Israel. That was the privilege given to the descendants of Aharon. So if the Pharisees were able to destroy the temple, then they would be able to conquer the Kohanim, and then they would get rid of that last Torah-based original power structure in over the nation of Israel, and they would be able to consolidate their usurpation of power over the people of Israel, which is exactly what they did. And as soon as they did that, then they continued or completed their installation of their new religion, which is not Torah, which is a derivative religion of Torah, just as Islam, just as is Christianity. They consolidated their installation of this new derivative religion of Torah known as Rabbinical Judaism, and that is the scourge that we live to until this day. Now that the nation of Israel is coming back to the land of Israel, we are waking up as a nation, and people, whether they realize it or not, want nothing more to do with this nonsense. They want nothing more to do with this false religion, this derivative religion of Rabbinical Judaism. And so they've thrown it, for the most part, the nation of Israel has thrown it in the garbage. And what have they gone to instead? Many have just become secular, what we call Chiloni here in Israel. Many have gone to other religions, such as, Eastern religions is very popular, or was very popular. It still is among Israelis. So they'll travel to India. They'll travel to countries where Buddhism is the predominant religion. So I don't know what's a big one where Israelis travel to where there's Buddhism. I don't know. Thailand? Is Thailand Buddhist? I don't know. They travel out to Thailand. They travel to Vietnam, to basically to the Far East, and they adopt their own kind of, I would say, toleration of Rabbinical Judaism. So they'll kind of keep kosher. They'll kind of do our bar mitzvah for their kids, bar bat mitzvah for their kids. They'll maybe do kiddush on Shabbat, which means the blessing over the wine. But they're not going to do much more than that. Maybe they'll go to synagogue on what the rabbis call Rosh Hashanah, but they're not going to do much more than that. The fact of the matter is that the vast majority of the nation of Israel has discarded Rabbinical Judaism long ago. And when I say long ago, I mean coinciding with the return of the people of Israel to the land of Israel. In Israel is now the largest concentration of population of Jews in the entire world, the second largest being the United States of America. And that's coming to an end very quickly. As I said, take it to the bank, 10 years max for the Jews in America. In 10 years, the Jews in America will either have been expelled, exterminated, or pogromed, or very, very close to it. But I think it will have already been in its later stages within 10 years. The United States is a country that is teetering on the edge right now. We can see the impotence of the U.S. dollar, right? The rise, the what's the word I'm looking for? The cosmic? No, that's not the right word. The meteoric rise in the price against the dollar of gold and silver, even though it's fallen, I understand, in the past day or so. But this is a sign that the United States empire is on the verge of collapse. There are many other signs as well. Anywho, getting back to the siege of Jerusalem in 63 BCE, let me just check in to see if there are any comments. Yeah, I'm back, Phil. I've been back for a while. Welcome. Glad you're here. So let's read a little bit about the siege of Jerusalem in 63 BCE. So the siege of Jerusalem in 63 BCE occurred during Pompey the Great's campaigns in the east, shortly after his successful conclusion of the Third Mithridatic War. Pompey had been asked to intervene in a dispute over inheritance to the throne of the Hasmonean kingdom, which turned into war between Hyrcanus II and Astribulus II. So Hyrcanus II was Pharisee. He sided with the Pharisees, and Astribulus II sided with the Sadducees. And we'll see what happens. His conquest of Jerusalem spelled the end of an independent Jewish state and thus the incorporation of Judea as a client kingdom of the Roman Republic, and later as a province of the Roman Empire. Background: the death of Hasmonean Queen Alexandra Salome, often called Shlom Tzion Malka, plunged Judea into a civil war between her two sons, Hyrcanus and Astribulus. After Astribulus had ousted his elder brother from the throne and the high priesthood in Jerusalem, and Antipater the Idumean advised Hyrcanus to enlist the aid of King Aretas III of Nabatea. So the Nabateans lived basically east of Israel. The most famous Nabatean city is Petra. It's still remain until this day, and is probably maybe the biggest tourist site in this country of Jordan. In return for the promise of territorial concessions, Aretas provided Hyrcanus with 50,000 soldiers, and their joint forces besieged Astribulus in Jerusalem. Pompey had followed the successful conclusion of the Third Mithridatic War with the creation of the province of Syria, and had spent the years of 64 and 63 BC in bringing Roman law and order to the region. Events in Judea prompted Aemilius Scaurus, Pompey's legate in Damascus, to arrive in Jerusalem. Scaurus was approached by both parties, but the issue was settled by a bribe from Astribulus, and Scaurus ordered Aretas to lift his siege of the city. As the Nabatean army withdrew towards Petra, Astribulus set off in pursuit and defeated the Nabateans at Papyron. When Pompey himself arrived in Damascus in 63 BCE, both Hyrcanus and Astribulus visited him there. Pompey put off resolving the issue and informed the opposing parties he'd resolve it once he had arrived in Judea in person. Astribulus did not wait for Pompey's decision and left Damascus to shut himself away at the fortress of Alexandrium. That angered Pompey, who marched into Judea with his forces, at the sight of which Astribulus yielded. When Pompey's general Aulus Gabinius, who by the way is the one who established the Sanhedria. Okay, so the Sanhedrin was established by the Romans. Okay, by this guy, Aulus Gabinius. He set up 5 Sanhedria, which is what later, out of that grew what the rabbis called the Sanhedrin. Led a force to take Jerusalem. However, Astribulus' supporters refused to let the Roman troops in. Incensed, Pompey had Astribulus arrested and prepared to besiege the city. We'll go a little bit further. It's very detailed, but let's go a bit further. When Pompey arrived in Jerusalem, he surveyed the city. This is from Josephus. For he saw the walls were so firm that it would be hard to overcome them, and that the valley before the walls was terrible, and that the temple, which was within that valley, was itself encompassed with a very strong wall, insomuch that if the city were taken, the temple would be a second place of refuge for the enemy to retire to. Hyrcanus II still had supporters in the city who opened the gate. So Hyrcanus II was a Pharisee. He was he was supported by the Pharisees. He opened the gate of the city, probably along the northwestern section of the wall, and let the Romans in. So thank you, the Pharisee, the heir to the throne, Hyrcanus II, who was supported by the Pharisees and aligned with the Pharisees, opened the gate of Jerusalem and let the Romans in. That would be like opening the gate of Jerusalem today and letting the Palestinians in, okay, or letting who's a sworn enemy of Israel, letting the Iranian army in to Jerusalem. Okay, this allowed Pompey to take hold of Jerusalem's upper city, including the royal palace, with Astribulus' party holding the eastern portions of the city, the Temple Mount, and the city of David. The Jews consolidated their hold by breaking down the bridge over the Tyropoeon Valley. That's the Tyropoeon Valley is to the west of the Jerusalem. It's kind of like a, some call it peninsula is not the right word because that probably juts out into the water, but I guess it's a ridge which connected the upper city with the Temple Mount. Pompey offered them the chance to surrender, but their refusal made them begin to persecute the siege with vigor. Pompey had his forces construct a wall of circumvallation, whatever the heck that means. Is the military process of surrounding an enemy fort with armed forces to prevent entry or escape. It serves both to cut off to cut communications with the outside world and to prevent supplies and reinforcements from being introduced. Okay. Alrighty. Around the areas that were held by the Jews, he then pitched his camp within the wall to the north of the temple, where stood a saddle, allowed access to the temple, and so was guarded by the citadel known as Baris, augmented by a ditch. A second camp was erected southeast of the temple. The troops then set about filling the ditch that protected the northern part of the temple enclosure and building two ramparts, one next to the Baris and the other on the west. The defenders, from their superior position, sought to hinder the Roman efforts. So who are these defenders? These defenders are the troops aligned with Astribolus, who was also aligned with the Sadducees. The Sadducees, again, were aligned with the Hasmonean dynasty throughout most of the period that the Hasmoneans ruled over Israel, and they were aligned with the Kohanim, and they were aligned with the temple. When the banks were complete, Pompey erected siege towers and brought up siege engines and battering rams from Tyre. Under the protection of slingers driving the defenders from the wall, they began to batter the walls surrounding the temple. After 3 months, Pompey's troops managed to overflow one of the Baris towers and were able to enter the temple precinct, both from the citadel and from the west. First over the wall was a senior officer in Pompey's army named Faustus Cornelius Sulla, the son of former dictator Sulla. Faustus was followed by 2 centurions, Furius and Fabius, who each led a cohort, and the Romans soon overcame the Jewish defenders, 12,000 of whom were slaughtered. Only a few Roman troops were killed. Pompey himself entered the temple's Holy of Holies. So thank you, Pharisees, for allowing a non-priest, and not only that, a non-Israelite, to enter the Holy of Holies, where only the high priest is allowed to enter the Holy of Holies on Yom Kippurim, on the holiest day of the year. That's in Leviticus chapter 16, which only the high priest was allowed to enter, and thus desecrated it. So that was the Pharisees that did that. Okay? He did nothing. He did not remove anything, neither its treasures nor any funds, not in the meantime. And the next day, he ordered the temple cleansed and its rituals resumed. Pompey then returned to Rome, taking Astribolus with him for triumphal procession. Aftermath, the siege and the conquest of Jerusalem were a disaster for the Hasmonean kingdom. Pompey reinstated Hyrcanus II as the high priest, but stripped him of his royal title. However, Rome later recognized him as ethnarch in 47 BCE. Judea remained autonomous, but was obliged to pay tribute and became dependent on Roman administration in Syria. The kingdom was dismembered and was forced to relinquish the coastal plain, depriving it of access to the Mediterranean as well as parts of Idumea and Samaria. Several Hellenistic cities were granted autonomy to form the Decapolis, leaving the state greatly diminished. And we'll just go to legacy. Historian Nadav Sharon identifies Pompey's conquest of Jerusalem in 63 BCE as a watershed moment in Jewish history, marking the end of Jewish statehood. He argues that this event initiated a transitional period in which Judea began to experience semi-diasporan conditions, with statelessness and foreign rule generating structural changes that reshaped Jewish society. According to Sharon, these developments laid the groundwork for the survival of Jewish life after the destruction of the temple in 70 CE, read Rabbinical Judaism, and contributed to the evolution, quote unquote, of Judaism. Again, that means the predominance of Rabbinical Judaism. So there you go. That's it in a nutshell. Okay. Alrighty, enough of that. Any questions, any comments? Before we go on, give me 1 second, please. I'm just going to grab water. I'll be right back. Okay, I is back. Alrighty, so any questions, any comments? Any questions, any comments? I hope you enjoyed that monologue. Sorry, I wasn't going to do one, but for you, my friend, I couldn't resist. Okay, so we're going to go into now the book of Malachi, the book of Malachi. So let me get that set up. Let me put on just like 1 or 2 songs, and we'll reconvene in under 5 minutes. and then we're going to continue reading the book of Malachi. Okay. Let's get this set up.
שלום לך דודי, הצף והאדמון, שלום לך בעת, רק החמור אימון. שלום לך דודי, הצף והאדמון, שלום לך בעת, רק החמור אימון. שלום לבית דודי, לקראת
התמונות שבאלבום, ילדות שלא נגמרת, אתה הבן אני האב, ואמא שוב דואגת. אתמול קיבלנו עוד מכתב, אצלך הכל בסדר, לא סיפרת על הקרב, רק על כל היתר. וכשתצא לעוד שבת, נחכה בפתח, אמא לכבודך בשלה, נשקיע אותך כמו פרח, גם נגהץ לך מדים. אני זוכר מה שהבטחת, ישמור עליך אלוהים, רק חזור הביתה. תמונה שלך בגיל שנה, עם סבתא מחייכת, ושתי תמונות של גיל מצווה, ואיך גדל הנכד. תמונה אחרת על מדים, עם הרובה ביד, ואני הבטחתי כשתגדל, לא תילחם באף אחד. וכשתצא לעוד שבת, נחכה בפתח, אמא לכבודך בשלה, נשקיע אותך כמו פרח, גם נגהץ לך מדים. אני זוכר מה שהבטחת, ישמור עליך אלוהים, רק חזור הביתה. התמונות שבאלבום, ילדות שלא נגמרת, אתה הבן אני האב, ואמא שוב דואגת. אתמול קיבלנו עוד מכתב, אצלך הכל בסדר, לא סיפרת על הקרב, רק על כל היתר. וכשתצא לעוד שבת, נחכה בפתח, אמא לכבודך בשלה, נשקיע אותך כמו פרח, גם נגהץ לך מדים. אני זוכר מה שהבטחת, ישמור עליך אלוהים, רק חזור הביתה. וכשתצא לעוד שבת, נחכה בפתח, אמא לכבודך בשלה, נשקיע אותך כמו פרח, גם נגהץ לך מדים. אני זוכר מה שהבטחת, ישמור עליך אלוהים, רק חזור הביתה.
Okay, we're back. Welcome back. Once again, this is the World Alliance of Qara'im Shabbat Torah study. And we are now going to study the book of Malachi, of Malachi. So we got up to pretty much the end of chapter 2. And we've spoken about how really the book of Malachi so far is a it's a dialectic, what would be called in the lingo, which means it's kind of a back and forth, or a question and answer, or a question being posed and then an answer being given. And let's very briefly review the questions and answers that we have seen so far in the book of Malachi, and then we'll continue on to the next one. So it's kind of unique in that sense that it has that particular structure that runs throughout most of the book. So let me share the screen. Oh, we want window, and we want this, and now it should be visible. Okay, so hopefully everybody can see the screen. Let's go very briefly to the English just to review. So the first question we mentioned when we started studying the book of Malachi a couple of weeks ago was, here, this is not part of the text, this is just the headline that the English translation gives here. So Israel doubts God's love. It's a question by Israel, right? I've loved you, says Yahweh, but you ask, how have you loved us? Right? So Israel is posing a question, posing a doubt, a query to Yahweh, and then Yahweh, I'm not going to go through it again because we've reviewed it each week when we've gone through this, when we've been studying Malachi. Yahweh basically answers, listen, I love Israel, I hate Esau, and how can this be proved? Because look at your land is green, and look at Esau's land, which is the Edom, later the Idumeans, is and today modern southern Jordan and Saudi Arabia is a desolate wasteland. Okay, then the second one is a question, a query, a doubt that Yahweh has to Israel. And Yahweh says to Israel, a son honors his father and a slave his master. If I am your father, if I am a father, where is the honor due me? If I am a master, where is the respect that is due me? Says Yahweh Almighty. And then Yahweh goes on Malachi goes on a long tirade against very specifically the Kohanim, that they bring unacceptable offerings. Okay, so here's an example. Okay, when you offer blind animals for sacrifice, is that not wrong? When you sacrifice lame or diseased animals, is not that wrong, right? Yahweh always, as we say, he gets the first and he gets the best. Try offering them to your governor. Would he be pleased with you? Would he accept you? Says Yahweh Almighty. And then there's a long kind of rant or tirade against the Kohanim, which continues into chapter 2. Okay. And then we get down to here. And this is where we're going to start today. And now Yahweh has another problem that he's posing to Israel, another question, another query in this dialectic, that this back and forth between Israel and Yahweh. And we're going to switch over to Hebrew, but let's just look at the English for a second, just to get the context. So you have wearied Yahweh with your words. This is Yahweh speaking to Malachi. How have we wearied him, you ask? Right? By saying all who do evil are good in the eyes of Yahweh, and he is pleased with them, or where is the God of justice? So now let's switch over to the Hebrew. And we're going to look at it in the Hebrew. Okay? So Gatem Yahweh b'divrechem, you have wearied, as we saw, from the underlying root, Yud Gimel Ayin, which means to weary, to wear out. You have wearied Yahweh with your words. Ve'amartem bameh oganu, but yet you say, how have we wearied? How we wearied Yahweh is the unwritten object here. Be'emrachem kol oseh ra tov. So how have you wearied God? By saying that everyone who does evil is good. Be'enei Yahweh, in the eyes of Yahweh. So you're calling black white, you're calling white black. War is peace and peace is war. You're saying that those who do good, those who do evil are the good people, right? This is something I think we can identify with in this day and age. Look at some of the societies we live in. Look at the United States, where those who do some really evil things, right? Like, I don't know, let's say some of the corporate leaders who are making billions upon billions of dollars, and in the meantime, destroying, whether it's through salaries that don't keep up with living wages, whether it's through selling crap, whether it's crappy food or medicine, that through the pharmaceutical companies, etc., right? And these are considered good by those who are not, don't have their eyes open. That's just one example. Okay. So you're saying that the evil ones are the do-gooders in the eyes of Yahweh. Ubahem hu chafetz, and that Yahweh desires them. Yahweh loves them. Or you're saying, where is the God of justice? In other words, you're implying that Yahweh is not looking. There's nobody home to keep track of who's doing good or evil. So good can be defined as the people want it. Evil can be defined as the people want it. Okay, let's get a little commentary here. Go to our buddy Robert Alter. We wearied the Lord. This verse might be the introduction to the prophecy recorded in the next chapter, because the malfeasance now is not divorce, which the previous paragraph spoke about, but a general perversion or rejection of divine justice. Okay, so now let's go into chapter 3 of Malachi. If you're following along, we're starting chapter 3 of Malachi. Malachi, for background, is the final book in the canon of the Tanakh. Okay, the so-called latest prophet. And one of the questions we've asked, and now we're going to see kind of an answer to it, I believe, is Malachi the name of a person? So all of the other books of the prophets, whether it's the 3 major prophets or all of the other minor prophets, are the names of the prophets. So we have the book of, Zechariah. The prophet is Zechariah. If we have the book of Isaiah, the prophet is named Isaiah, and we have his lineage at the beginning of the book. Okay. In the case of Malachi, it's not clear. In fact, I think it is kind of clear, but not 100% clear. Is Malachi the proper name of the prophet, or does it just mean my messenger? Because the word malach in Hebrew, in biblical Hebrew, means a messenger. Often the word malach is used to mean angel, but very specifically the word for angel in the Tanakh is malach Yahweh, which literally means the messenger of Yahweh. There's no such word or single word that means angel. It's 2 words. It's messenger of Yahweh. And in fact, the word angel comes from the Greek word angelos, which means a messenger. But in later languages, the word angel came to imply a messenger of Yahweh. Just as sometimes we'll see the word malach without the clarifying word of malach Yahweh, but contextually you can see that it's the messenger of God, so it's an angel. So an angel is just a messenger, but a messenger from Yahweh. That's all angel means, whether it's in the English, whether it's in the Greek, or whether it's in the Hebrew malach. Okay? So now, if malach just means a messenger, then malachi, when you have the suffix yud with a chirik e, then that means mine. So if I want to say in Hebrew, my telephone, okay, here's my telephone, I could say telephony. Okay, it's a horrible example, but nobody says it that way. They would say telephone sheli, but it doesn't matter. I could say telephony, and that would mean my telephone. Or if I want to say, let's give a different example. Let's say my table. I would say shulchani. Okay, so the e ending means mine. It's the possessive ending, the genitive ending. Okay, as you see in other languages. So in Latin, you might have a word like, what would be table? Tablus, and then I believe my table would be also tabli. I don't remember. I'd have to remember my Latin. I did take 2 years of Latin in high school, but I'm a little bit rusty. Tabli, tablus, tablai. I don't remember. I'd have to look it up. Anyway, it's a suffix that implies possession. Okay, and so malachi really means my messenger. So who's the me? Who's the my and my messenger? Well, it's clear that it's Yahweh's messenger. So if it's Yahweh's messenger, then this is in a sense saying he's an angel, as we would call, but it's not meant literally here. It's not meant that he's literally an angel. He's a prophet. He's a messenger of Yahweh because he's sending or he's transmitting the words of Yahweh to the people of Israel. Okay? So once again, the question arises, is Malachi the proper name of this prophet that's speaking? Or does it just mean my messenger, my prophet? Okay? It could be either. And let's look at this in the Hebrew and let's talk about that a little bit more. So now we're going to start in chapter 3 of Malachi, of the book of Malachi. Please follow along with a translation if you wish. So verse 1 says, Hinani sholech malachi. So behold, I am sending my messenger. Okay? So does this mean that when this book is called Malachi, my messenger, that it's just the name of the book because here in this verse it says I'm sending my messenger? Or is this a play on words? The Torah often uses wordplay, plays on words. And so this could mean that the person's proper name was Malachi, which means my messenger. And here it's being used in a wordplay to say I am sending my messenger or I am sending this person named Malachi. Okay? I have my own opinion. I think that the name Malachi is not a proper noun. In other words, it's not the person's proper name, like Joe or Bob or Dan. It means my messenger, but it's not 100% a foregone conclusion. Okay? And I think that if it is the case that what I'm saying is correct, that this is not the person's proper name, that it just means my messenger, then the reason the book would be called Malachi is because it is based on this verse right here. Because this person this prophet who's giving these prophecies, right, who's speaking these words to Israel, is called Yahweh's messenger. It's called my messenger right here in this verse. So because maybe his name was not known, or because the name of the book did not take on his name, as the other books of the prophets do, then the book became known as Malachi, my messenger, from this verse right here. At any rate, it says, Hineni sholech Malachi, behold, I send my messenger, who may or may not be named Malachi, derech lefanai, and he will clear the way before me. ופתאום יבוא אל היכלו האדון אשר אתם מבקשים ומלאך הברית. Okay, right there. And suddenly, one second, let me just make sure I have this brought up here. Chapter 3. So we need to refer to it. Okay. So, and suddenly in modern Hebrew, it's pitom. So suddenly or quickly, yavo el hechalo, and quickly he will come into his, how do you say hechal again in English? I can't remember the English word for it. Like, not sanctuary, they call it the, oh God, I forgot the English word. Temple? Nah, I don't like the translation either. It's a very specific English translation. Hechal, sanctuary? No, that's mikdash. Okay, we'll go with temple. So suddenly he will come into his temple, into the temple of the master, meaning of God, asher atem mivakshim, who you are seeking out. Umalach abrit, asher atem chapetzim, and the messenger of the covenant that you desire. Hine ba amar Yahweh Tzevaot. Behold, he is coming, says Yahweh Tzevaot. So let's get a little commentary on that. Okay. So just to see Robert Alter's translation, okay, I'm about to send my messenger. He shall clear the way before me in a trice, like in a moment. He shall enter his temple, the master whom you seek, and the covenant's messenger who you desire. Look, he comes, said the Lord of armies. Okay, and let's see if we can get a little commentary on that. Let's go down here. Okay, so Robert Alter speaks about Okay, although this is the designation of the prophet responsible for the book Malachi, here the obvious references to a divine messenger who will herald God's entrance into the temple, right? So that's what we spoke about, that this word Malachi is just means my messenger, but it may or may not be a play on words on the actual name of the actual proper name of the person. Okay, let's go on. Okay. Umi michalkel et yom bo'o. So who shall sustain or who shall provide sustenance for the day of his coming? Umi ha'omed behe'aroto. And who shall remain standing? Who shall stand when he is seen upon his appearance? Kihu ka'esh mitzaref ukiborit michabsim. So because he is like the fire of the smelter, the person who smelts metal, right? We know how hot those fires go. Ukiborit michabsim, and he's like the soap, or like the I guess you would say the soap of the washer, meaning the clothes washer, right? And this is where we get this. The underlying root here is bor or borit. Okay, borit. So they translate as soap or lye, and this is where we get the name of the chemical element boron. It comes from this word borit, and I think it's actually admitted to by the standard etymologies. Okay, so, and again, let's just get another translation here. Okay, so who can bear the day of his coming, and who can stand when he appears? For he is like the smelter's fire and like the launderer's lye. Lye meaning Lye, launderer's soap. Okay, so we have this imagery of a messenger of God, right? Malachi, my messenger, is coming, and he's going to clear the way before me, before God's coming. Okay, and then God is going to come into his Hechal, his temple. Okay, and this is the God that you've been seeking. And so this messenger of the covenant, who you desired, is on his way, says the Lord of hosts. Okay, so here comes God. To paraphrase, a messenger is going to come, clear the way for Yahweh to come, and then he's going to show up in his temple, and who is going to be able to stand before him, because he's like the fire of the metal worker, and like the lye, Lye, like the raw soap of the clothes washer, of the launderer. Okay. Why yashav mitzaref u'mitaher kesef watihar et bnei Levi. So the smelter of iron, the iron worker, shall return and shall purify silver. A lot going on with silver these days. With Tieret bnei Levi, and he shall also purify the sons of Levi. Okay, who are the sons of Levi that are being referred to here? This is essentially referring to the Kohanim, to the priests. Wazikakutam kazahav, and he shall purify them, make them pure like gold, wakasef, and like silver. Vayuli Yahweh magishe mincha b'tzedakah, and so they shall be to Yahweh ones who bring offerings in righteousness. So again, this is kind of I wouldn't say a tirade, okay, but this is a message to essentially to the Kohanim. Okay, so Yahweh is going to come. There's going to be coming a messenger before him, announcing or clearing the way for Yahweh's coming. And then the Levites or the Kohanim are going to be purified for his coming. And this is in contrast, or this is in contrast to what we saw in the previous chapter, actually starting in chapter 1, where Malachi, where this prophet, this messenger of God, is chewing out, is berating the Levites, or the Kohanim specifically, for defiling the altar for God, for defiling the temple and God's sacrificial altar by bringing improper sacrifices. Okay, So this is kind of a, shall we say, an end of days prediction or an end of days prophecy, or at least a prophecy in the future. Okay, we arva liyahweh minhat Yehuda wa we Yerushalayim. Okay, and Yahweh shall take pleasure in the offerings, the gifts of Yehuda and Jerusalem, kimei olam kashim kadmoniot, like the days of old and like the ancient years, the years of the previous times. Kedem can mean a lot of things, but essentially what it means is turning one's face towards the east or towards the past. And I won't get into that right now, but that's essentially what it means. So it means looking backwards. So Kshanim Kadmoniot means like the days of yore, they're often translated as. Okay. Let's get a Robert Alter translation. And the smelter shall sit and purify silver and purify the sons of Levi and refine them like gold and silver, and they shall become grain offerings to the Lord in righteousness, and the grain offering of Judah and Jerusalem shall be sweet to the Lord as in the days of yore and in former years. Let's get a little commentary on that, if we can. Okay. So the day is coming because of the fiery power of the one who comes. It is most probably God, even though grammatically the pronomial references might be attached to the divine messenger. Okay. Smelters fire the wonders. Liar Malachi may have borrowed these images of purification from Isaiah. Okay, let's go on. Verse 5. We karati alechem lemishpat, and I will come close to you. I approach you for injustice or for justice. Wahaiti. We haiti ed mimaher. B'mechashfim u'b'na'afim u'b'nishma'im l'shaker. Let's go up to there because this is again the wishbone thing. If you see this little symbol there, that's called the atnachta or the atnach, and that represents a semicolon. So I will come close to you. I approach you in justice or for justice. So I eat the ayed mimaher, and I shall be a swift witness b'mechashfim against the witches or those who use witchcraft, mina'afim or adulterers, and what mishpaim l'shaker, and those who swear falsely. So in other words, when Yahweh shows up in his temple, and his way is going to be cleared by Malachi, by his messenger, by my messenger, says Yahweh in this prophecy. So he's going to show up. He's going to purify the Levites. And when it refers to the Levites, it's really referring to the Kohanim, who are a subset of the Levites. So these Kohanim who were chewed out in the previous chapters are now going to bring proper sacrifices to Yahweh, who's now showing up again. And it's going to be like the days of yore. It's going to be like the old days before the Kohanim became corrupt. Okay? And then when Yahweh does enter his temple, he's going to quickly do justice, and he's going to do justice against, and we have three examples here: those who carry on witchcraft, those who engage in adultery, and those who falsely swear. Okay, and falsely swearing always means falsely swearing in the name of God, the explicit name of God, Yud Kei Vav Kei. Okay, u'ba'oshke sachar, and those who cheat others out of their salary. Sachir almana v'yatom, the salary due to the widow and the orphan. Umatei ger, and who pervert the justice. Literally, it says matei ger means literally bend the ger. We know what a ger is, usually poorly translated as a convert, but it really means a foreigner who comes to live and join the nation of Israel. So matei ger really means here distort the justice of the ger. In other words, take advantage of the ger, and distort justice against the ger, because the ger cannot protect himself. The ger, as we've mentioned many times, is a protected class in Israel. We see this in Exodus chapter 20 in the laws of the Shabbat, for example, and many other places, that on the Shabbat, you don't work on the Shabbat in order that your son, your daughter, your maidservant, your manservant, and the ger that lives among you also don't work. So the ger is a protected class in Israel because they come from a foreign land. Anyone like myself who's moved away from the land where they were born, where there is ostensibly family, friends, extended family, you know the language, you know the culture. If you've ever moved away from your place of origin and moved to a foreign country, as I did a number of times, to Israel, right? So when I first came to Israel, I didn't know the language, I didn't know the culture, I didn't know anything. I'd never been to Israel. I came to Israel on June 23rd, 1993 for the first time. Ended up staying for 13 years, and then going back to the United States for a while. Then I lived in Portugal for 4 years, and then back to Israel. And I know exactly what that feels like to come from faraway land, even though this is my land as an Israelite, as a Jew. Still, since I didn't grow up here, I didn't have family here. I do have some extended family here, but I didn't really know them. I didn't know the language. I didn't know the culture. You know, I had a degree from an American university, which works great in America, but doesn't work as well as in Israel. In Israel, if you want to move here, you're better off having done the army than having not done the army and gone to some university, even if it's a good American university. It's a whole different culture here, right? So anyone who's done that knows what it's like to be a ger. You're not coming here with a huge network and roots in the place. And so in the Torah, the ger is someone who comes to Israel, even more so, who's not an Israelite, who comes to live among and join his fate, join his future to the people of Israel. He has no family here. He doesn't have any roots here. He does not have an inheritance in the land, and perhaps it's the main aspect of the ger. All of the descendants of Israel, meaning the patrilineal, the male descendants of Jacob, down through the generations, they all have a land inheritance. They all get a piece of land, which is theirs and can never be taken away. We're going to get to that very soon in Leviticus chapter 25. But the ger does not have or does not get an inheritance in the land. So he's kind of a landless sojourner. Okay, and so therefore he can very easily be taken advantage of, as can all of these three classes, which often appear together. So the almanah is the widow. If you were a widow in ancient Israel, you were a woman. That means you were a woman essentially without a husband. So you were kind of left on your own. It was a very patriarchal society, and I believe in patriarchal societies. I think it's good for men, women, children, and the society as a whole. But if you were an almanah and your husband had died, then you were kind of also in a very disadvantaged position, and so you become a protected class. The yatom is someone who doesn't have a parents, an orphan, but maybe it's very specifically referring to doesn't have a father, because again, if the patriarch dies in the family and the yatom is and the orphan is a young child who cannot yet establish his own family, or maybe a youth who cannot yet establish his own family, then he's also in a disadvantaged position. And the ger. Okay, so let's read this again. Okay, so this is what justice is going to be done. Okay, and we don't see here one of the beautiful things, and one of the things that originally, when I started getting back into Karaism way back in the mid to late 1990s, the prophets speak straight to the point. There's nothing here about, if you forget to say the blessing over a banana, then you have to go, say it standing on your head, 3 times or something like that, like rabbinical Judaism may say. This is straight to the point, okay? Yahweh is going to show up. He's going to do justice. What kind of justice is he going to do? He's going to do justice against those who practice witchcraft, those who practice adultery, those who swear falsely in his name, those who distort or steal the wages of the widow, the orphan, and who take advantage of the ger by perverting justice against them, by not giving him true justice in a court case, because he can be taken advantage of. He doesn't have a bunch of family, extended family, who's going to defend him. Okay. And they will not even see me, says Yahweh of hosts. Who will not even see him? These types of people. Okay, these people that are doing these things, who are doing witchcraft, adultery, etc. So we see up above that he's going to show up. Okay, Umi omed beherato ki u ke'esh mitzaref u'kiborit mechapsim. Who will stand? Who will be able to stand up and see him? Okay, or who will be able to stand up to remain standing when he appears? Beheroto literally means upon his appearance. Okay, because he's like a fire. He's as strong or as bright as a fire, and as powerful or as acidic, as potentially damaging as the lye that's used by those who launder clothes. Okay, so who's going to stand up and see him? Well, these types of people are not those who do witchcraft, etc., and who take advantage of the widow, the orphan, and who pervert justice against the ger. Okay, so if this is the answer to the question that is posed in the end of Malachi 2, right? What's the question again? What is this dialectic? What is this problem or this query that's posed by God to Israel? Okay, let's remember it. Ogatim Yahweh b'divrechem. You have wearied Yahweh in your words, and yet you say, "How we wearied you?" And then Yahweh answers by saying that all those who do evil are actually doing good in the eyes of Yahweh. And then Yahweh goes on to give this through Malachi, through his messenger Malachi. Right? Behold, I am sending my messenger. And what is he going to do? He's going to do justice. He's going to clear the path. I'm sorry, he's not going to do justice. He's going to clear the path for me. I'm going to come back into my temple. And what does that mean, God's temple? It means a very, very specific thing. So this is already, Malachi lived at the beginning of the second temple period. So the first temple had already existed and been destroyed by this time. But we know that in the first temple and in the tabernacle out in the wilderness, that Yahweh's temple means it's in the Holy of Holies, the Kodesh Kedoshim, right? The inner sanctum. In the inner sanctum, the only thing that is there is the Brit Aron Kodesh, right? The Brit Aron, the Aron Brit Kodesh, the Aron Brit Yahweh, the Ark of the Covenant, right? Like Indiana Jones was looking for, and I guess found. And in the Ark of the Covenant were the tablets of the covenant, the 10 commandments on the 2 tablets, and above it was a cover known as the kaporet, and this kaporet was a single block or a single gush, how would you say in English, gush, a single like lump of gold that was formed into the cover, plus the 2 cherubim that faced each other. And where those 2 cherubim met, essentially where their faces met, that was where Yahweh, quote unquote, dwelled, where his presence, or very specifically, we did an entire study on this, the kavod Yahweh, the glory of Yahweh dwelt. The only thing that exists in this world, and it does not exist in any physical form whatsoever, but it's Yahweh's, it's hard to even give it words. In the Torah, it's called the kavod Yahweh. So very specifically, the part of Yahweh that, if exists at all in this world, does exist, is called the kavod Yahweh. It doesn't have any physical form, right? Because that would be exactly what the idols were all about. It's kind of like his, I hate to sound like hippy dippy, but it's the emanation of his energy, of his presence in this world. It's the you could think of it as a point that has no space, that doesn't take up any space, and has no physical existence whatsoever. But from this point, from this place between where the faces of the cherubim on the ark cover meet, his spiritual, I hate that word spiritual, but we'll just use it, his energy emanates out into this physical world. Okay, so his energy source in this world, which is a world of space and time, but his energy, his spirit, just as our spirit, do not live in space and time, but they emanate out from, from our, I don't know, somewhere around here, like behind our eyes, right? Don't they always talk about the third eye or something like that? We won't get into that kind of mysticism. But our energies, our soul, the energy of our souls, the presence of our souls, our essence emanates into this world from behind our eyes, right? Certainly not coming out of our big toe or something like that. We can all feel where our essence exists somewhere in our brain behind our eyes. So in the same way, Yahweh's energy, his spiritual energy emanates into this world of space and time, into this physical world from that point or that place where the faces of the two cherubim on the ark cover meet. Okay? All right. Any questions, any comments so far? Let's add Paul to the stage. But we're going to mute him. Oops.
Hi, how are you, Malik? Happy to be here with you.
I'm good. Thank you very much. Can you hear me when you're not on the stage? I just want to know.
Yes, I can. Yeah, absolutely can.
You can. All right. So I'm going to take you off temporarily. If you want to say something, just text me because I don't want to, because we're going through the study right now. But when it comes time for comments or questions, I'll bring you back on. Okay? All right. Very good. Okay. Okay. All right. So, yeah, and it's very important to understand that this is a very specific thing in the Torah, this Kavod Yahweh. We did an entire study on this idea. I think we did multiple studies on this idea of Kavod Yahweh. That is very specifically the thing that exists between the place where the cherubim meet, and that is the only presence of Yahweh that emanates directly into this physical world of space and time, and it emanates from wherever the Ark of the Covenant is. And where's the Ark of the Covenant supposed to be? It's supposed to be in the Holy of Holies, which eventually the place for that Holy of Holies was chosen to be the Temple Mount in Jerusalem when David bought the threshing floor of Araunah to ultimately set up the altar there, to set up the tabernacle there. Okay, and the son Solomon built the temple there. All right, so let's move on. Okay, so that ends that dialectic. That ends that back and forth. Let's see if we want to go on here. Yeah, let's go on a little bit more. Okay, any questions, any comments so far in that first part of the book of Malachi? Welcome, Phil. Alrighty, let's move on then. Let's see if we can get a little commentary here. So verse 5, I will approach you for judgment, while the sharp antithesis to what precedes could signal the beginning of a new prophecy. It could also be a dialectic swing. Is that word dialectic? Whenever you see dialectic, it means like a back and forth or dialogue in a certain sense. But a dialogue implies just a conversation, right? Whereas a dialectic implies an oppositional conversation. Okay, in other words, a query and a response, or a challenge and a response, Okay, that's what a dialectic is. Swing within a continuous prophetic utterance. God will restore the purity of the Levites when he comes back to the temple, but he will also make a reckoning with the sundry wrongdoers in Israel. Okay, against those who extort the hired man's wages, that's verse 5. Until now, Malachi has been concerned chiefly with the corruption of the temple cult, as we saw, okay, except for the very first question, the very first query. Everything since then, and what was that very first query? Israel queries or challenges God. You say you love me, but you say you love us, but how do we know, what proof do we have that you love us? But now he moves into denunciation of the sundry social injustices familiar from the first Commonwealth prophets. Okay. And we are on verse. Okay, so that's where we got up to. So let's go on to verse 6. Okay, so verse 6 in the Hebrew, So ki, this implies that it's a continuation of what was being said before. Okay, so he's lambasting the evildoers, those who pervert the justice of the ger, who rob the widow and orphan of their salary, etc. Okay, ki ani Yahweh lo shaniti, watem bnei Yisrael lo kilitem. Because I, Yahweh, have not changed. I haven't changed my opinion. I haven't changed my justice. Watem bnei Yaakov lo kilitem. And you, the sons of Jacob, have not completely disappeared, have not been finished off. Okay? Robert Alter translates that one. Have not come to an end. Okay? You've not been finished off. The implication, though, is that you've sinned, right? But yet I didn't finish you off. I have not changed. My sense of justice is still the same. And you have not been finished off, even though you've done evil, is the implication. Okay? Let's go up to here. So, from the days of your forefathers, your ancestors, you've deviated from my statutes, and you've not kept them. Return to me, and I will return to you. Come back to me, and I will come back to you. Amar Yahweh Tzivot. This is a very famous phrase in the Tanakh. Okay, come back to me, return to me, and I will return to you, says Yahweh of hosts. And you say, so here we have another dialectic. We have another question. This time the question is posed by Israel to God. The challenge is posed by Israel to God. And you say, how shall we return? Okay. Let's see if there's any commentary on that. So there's none. Let's go on to verse 8. Okay. So, verse 8. Bar Adam Elohim ki atem kovim oti. Shall a man cheat God? Yet you have cheated me. And let's just look at this root here. 1 second. So let's see one thing. Yeah, so it really only appears 6 times, 4 times in Malachi and 2 times in Proverbs. So it's a spoil. Right. So because it appears so few times, you see the the Brown Driver Briggs, the BDB dictionary will list it as the meaning is dubious. So dubious, perhaps rob. Synonym gazal. Gazal means to rob. So we'll go with rob. Okay? Rob, to seize, to take away. So it's not a well-known root. When you have non-well-known roots, then the interpreters and the translators will guess. And as I've mentioned many times, when you're studying Torah, if you look at various English translations and you see they differ, and I don't mean differ by maybe, superficial things like spelling or grammar or something like that. When they differ, when 3 or 4 different English translations or whatever language you want to translate into, give three or four different meanings for the same word, that is a sign that nobody really knows what the word means. That's too obscure to be known. And that kind of is the case here. And I bet if we looked at a couple of different English translations, we would get a couple of different a couple of different translations for this word. But we'll go with Rav. Adam Elohim ki atem kovim oti. So shall. So this is a challenge. that Yahweh poses to Israel. Shall a man rip off, steal from God, or cheat God? Yet you're ripping me off. You're cheating me. And you say, how have we cheated you? You've treated me with the tithes and with the terumas, the holy donations. Okay? The donations, which we will eventually get to in detail in the Torah. Atem ne'arimoti. So b'me'era atem ne'arimoti. So this comes from the underlying root aleph resh, which means a curse or to curse. So you curse me with your curses, or with a curse you are cursing me. And you are cheating me. Hagoy kulo, the entire nation. We see the word here, goy. So in modern Hebrew parlance, or in the colloquial meaning of the word goy, it means the non-Israelite nations, but the word goy just means a nation, people, and it often refers to the people of Israel. And that's exactly what it refers to here. So the entire nation is cheating me. Okay? So let's get some commentary there. Okay? Let's get a translation. Let's get a secondary translation. Can a human cheat God? For you are cheating me. And you said, how do we cheat you? In tithes and donations. Despite the curse which you are cursed, me you cheat, the whole nation. Let's go back to Hebrew for a second. So I'm sorry, I said the curse that you are cursing me, but it is ne'erim, which with you are cursed. So that's correct. Okay, so despite the fact that you're cursed, you're still cheating me. And let's get a commentary there. How do we cheat you? Malachi again invokes his favorite form of dialogue, challenge, and response, right? Also known as dialectic. In tithes and donation, now he returns to the dominant theme of abuse of the cult. In this instance, the object of critique is the failure to deliver tithes and donations to the temple, or perhaps shortchanging in the delivery. So despite the curse, the people palpably suffer as punishment for their misdeeds, but still persist in them. Okay? So verse 10, Abiu et kol ha'maser el beit ha'otzar. So bring all of the tithes to the house of the treasury, to the treasure house. Vayiteref bebeiti. So there should be provision in my house. Bachanuni na bezot amar Yahweh Tzevaot. Im lo eftach lechem et arubot hashamayim ve'arikotim lechem bracha ad bli dai. So test me, please, by doing this. Amar Yahweh Tzevaot, says the Lord of hosts. Im lo eftach lechem et arubot hashamayim. If, and I'll explain what all this means, but let me give a kind of literal translation here. If then I should not, or if I should not open up the arubot. God, what's a good English translation for arubot? They usually translate it as, it means like the pipes, but it's a better translation. I'm trying to think of it. Let's see how to translate it here. Water spouts, the windows. That's a horrible translation. The pipes. I'm going to go with. Okay, the pipes of the heavens. And I empty out upon you blessing ad blidai, with until there's no end, an endless blessing. Okay, so what does this all mean? So Yahweh is accusing Israel of cheating him. Israel says, what do you mean cheating you? How are we cheating you? Yahweh says you're not bringing the proper tithes and donations that you're supposed to. Okay, tithes go to the Levites and the Kohen, the Trumot also. Okay, so you're not bringing to the temple, to the tabernacle, to the Levites and the Kohanim, the proper donations that you're supposed to, the tithes and the donations. Okay, even though you're being cursed, you still do this. All of the nation, the whole nation is doing it. And now Yahweh issues a challenge to Israel. Okay, bring all, and I'm going to paraphrase here. So bring all of the tithes that you're supposed to bring to the treasury, to the temple treasury, and let there be provision. Let there be enough tithes. Let there be provision in my house, and then test me. B'hanuni, nambazot, and then test me on this. Amar Yahweh Tzavot, says the Lord of Hosts. If I don't, at that point, if you start bringing the proper tithes, you test me and see if what happens. Okay, imlo, and if I do not do such and such, then I'm not telling the truth, or I am not Yahweh. I'm not God. Okay, if I don't do what? If I don't open up the pipes of heaven, and that's a Tanachic way. We see also the very same phrase in the flood in the flood of Noah back in Genesis chapter 5, 6, 5, I think 5. And when the pipes of the heavens are opened up, it's a way of saying that rain just pours down from the heavens. Okay, so test me on this. Bring the tithes and see if I don't open up the heavens and rain starts pouring down. And I empty upon you all of this blessing, meaning the blessing of rains, until it's endless, until it's more than enough. Okay, so test me, and you see at that point if you're not blessed with enough rains to give you blessing. What does that mean? To give you blessing, to allow your crops to grow, the grasses to grow, for the animals to eat. We know that the land of Israel is extremely dependent on the rain from the heavens, right? It's a land of hills and valleys. It's a land of underground watercourses. It's not a vegetable garden, as it says, like Egypt, where the land is where the water, you have the water at your feet like a vegetable garden, referring to the flooding of the Nile each spring that happens in Egypt, and that's how they keep their crops to this day ordered around the Nile River. Okay, so the land of Israel relies on the proper rain, the early rains, the Yoreh and the Malkosh, as it says in the what's called the Shema, right? Prayer. So it relies on rains coming from the heavens. If there are no rains from the heavens, then there's a drought. And even to this day, there's a big problem each year. If we don't get enough rain, then the Kinneret, and I live in the Golan Heights, I can see the Kinneret from the edge of the city that I live in. If the Kinneret doesn't fill up, the Kinneret is essentially Israel's water source for all of Israel. Well, not for all of Israel, but for much of Israel. And if the Kinneret doesn't fill up, then it becomes very problematic. Now they're trying to ameliorate it, or they have ameliorated it by building desalination plants. But essentially, the Kinneret, the Sea of Galilee, is the water source more or less for the entire land of Israel, and it has been low for decades now, mostly because water use has increased. The demand for water has increased as the population has grown, and but still, when rain comes, especially here in the Golan Heights, I have to say, when rain comes, then everyone talks about, the rain's a pain in the neck. It's cold, it's windy, not cold, it never gets cold here, but it's chilly, like maybe goes down into the 40s Fahrenheit, and it's a pain in the neck. Everything's very wet, and it can go on for a couple of days sometimes, but everyone understands the importance of the rain falling here, specifically in the Golan Heights, because that's where the runoff into the Sea of Galilee, into the Kinneret Lake occurs from. It occurs from the Golan Heights. Because the Golan Heights is it's a plateau, it's a high plateau above the Sea of Galilee, and ultimately, if you go out to the north, then you go into the mountains like Mount Hermon, and eventually up into the mountain, the Lebanon and the anti-Lebanon mountains. I don't know if runoff comes all the way down here from there, but the mountains surrounding the Golan Heights are the source of the runoff that fills the Sea of Galilee. Okay, so everything depends on rain in the land of Israel. Okay? It's not like Egypt, where the Nile River floods reliably each spring as it flows from the highlands in the south. There were really and to this day, there are two parts of Egypt. There's Upper Egypt and there's Lower Egypt. Lower Egypt means northern Egypt. It's basically the flatlands near the Nile Delta, and then Upper Egypt, which extends all the way into the country south of Egypt, Ethiopia, I think Eritrea, perhaps parts of Sudan. Look at the map again, but this Upper Egypt means the highlands of Egypt. That's where the rains occur in the wintertime, and then they flow down into Lower Egypt. They flow north, into the Nile Delta, which floods, and so it's an extremely reliable source of water. It's not exactly the same in Israel. It's not that same reliable system. It depends each year very much on how much rain falls. So what Yahweh is saying is, if you bring your proper tithes, if you bring your proper trumot, your proper donations to the Kohanim and to the Levites, to the temple, then you can test me on it. Put me to the test, okay? You'll see at that point, or if I don't do such and such, then my name ain't Yahweh. That's basically what he's saying, because of the language here. Imlo, or is it Imlo iftach? If I don't, and then he goes on to say, do such and such, which is open up the pipes of heaven and empty endless blessings upon you, then the implication is, in parentheses, then my name is not Yahweh, or I am not Yahweh. It's a very specific phraseology. This if such and such should happen, or if such and such should not happen, is a very common phraseology to express this idea in the Tanakh. Okay? So Yahweh is saying, put me to the test. Yahweh is accusing the nation of cheating him out of the trumot, the tithes, and the donations. The entire nation, even though they're cursed, they're still doing it. And then Yahweh says, bring me what's owed to me. And if you bring me these tithes and these donations, you can put me to the test, see if that curse doesn't turn into a blessing. See if I don't open up the heavens and pour so much rain down on you that you're going to have enough for your crops, you're going to have enough for your water needs, the Karaite is going to fill up, and you will see then that my word is true. Okay? Don't cheat me, and watch how much I bless you. Okay? All right, we'll go back here and see if there are any questions or any comments before we go on. Anybody have any questions or comments? So let's go on. Okay. Let's get some commentary. If there is any, I guess we'll do some Robert Alter again. And we're up to, where are we up to now? We're up to verse 11. So we have commentary on verse 10. Okay, that there be revision in my house. The tithe was not currency. This was still not a money economy, but a tithe of agricultural products and livestock, hence provision. Right, exactly. So the word in Hebrew, teref. Teref literally means prey, or that which has been preyed upon, but by its extended meaning here, it means provision, that which has been brought, that which has been brought from the crops and the livestock of the Israelites. Okay. All right, let's go on. Okay. וגערתי לכם באוכל, ולא ישחית לכם את פרי האדמה. And I will, ga'arti is like rebuke, I guess you can say. Let's see, Robert translates it. By the way, Robert also translates that pipes, or what the other translation was windows, is casements. I have no idea what casements are, but there you go. Okay. Okay, so where were we? גערתי לכם באוכל, ולא ישחית לכם את פרי האדמה. So I shall rebuke you with the consumer, or the eater, or the devourer. ולא ישחית לכם את פרי האדמה. And I will no longer destroy for you, or I will not destroy the fruit of your land. Okay, let's see if we can get a little commentary on that. So by the way, here, I will open for you the casemates, or the pipes of heaven. So it wasn't Genesis 5, it's Genesis 7. My apologies. Approximately the same phrasing occurs at the beginning of the flood in Genesis 7:11. In Genesis, it designates a devastating deluge, but here it is rain that fructifies the land. What does fructify mean? It means make fruitful. Fructify. Like fructose is fruit sugar. Okay, and very clearly the word fruit, I believe, and I don't think the etymologies admit to this, but it can be traced back to pre. Right, so fruit in Hebrew is, in ancient and modern Hebrew, is pri. Pa, fa are very similar. They are very interchangeable. They're both towards the front of the mouth. Okay. So pa can change to fa. Pri, fruit. Right. Pri, free, fruit. Okay. Shower upon you, literally empty out upon you. Okay. So the devourer. So Robert Alter here says this is an epithet for the locust, as becomes clear in what immediately follows, and we'll see that in a second. Okay. So so I will rebuke you with the devourer. And we'll see, as Robert Alter says, that that's referring clearly to the locust. And he will not, or perhaps, but he will not destroy the fruit of the land. V'lo tishaker lachem agefen basadeh amar Yahweh Tzebaot. And he shall not, tishakel is like deprive you of. The geffen is the grapevine, basadeh, in the field, amar Yahweh Tzebaot. So let's see what all this means. Okay. Vayishru etchem kol hagoyim, and all of the nations will call you happy. I guess you can translate that as asher, means happy. Yishru, asher in modern Hebrew means to confirm or to certify, but really what it means is the meaning that we see here. Here they translate it as bless, I think. I don't think that's call blessed. Yishru etchem. So the meaning here is we'll see you as happy, or notice your happiness, call you happy. Let's see how Robert Alter translates it. So he translates it as call you happy. But it's very interesting because from this phrase right here, we get in modern Hebrew, the word ishru or lasher means to, as I said, confirm or certify. And it comes right from this verse here, that modern meaning, because in other words, that if you repent, if you bring the tithes and the donations, then I will not send the locust on you. The fruit of your land will not be destroyed. The grapevine in the field will not be destroyed, and all of the nations will see it and declare you as happy. Declare you as happy. Okay. But the implication here is, okay, so it's, without getting too much into the grammar, it's the PL form, le asher, which implies intensity or intensiveness or causality. So they will, in this case, the implication is that they will see you or declare you as happy. And so from that, you get the modern meaning of the word la'asher in modern Hebrew, which means to certify or to declare. Okay? It's kind of a obscure technical point, so don't worry about it too much. But all of the nations will declare you happy. Because you shall have to you atem eretz chafetz amar Yahweh Tzebaot, because you shall have, or you shall be in possession of, a desirable land, says Yahweh Tzebaot. Okay, so let's back up here and just get the entire context. Let's paraphrase this entire paragraph. Okay, so Yahweh comes to Israel with a challenge, with a query, and the challenge is you've cheated me. You guys are cheating me. This nation is cheating me, all of you. What do you mean we're cheating you? That's Israel's response. It's a dialectic, challenge and response. Yahweh's response is, you're not bringing me my proper tithes and my proper donations. Even though you're being cursed, the entire nation is still not doing it. Bring me my proper tithes and my proper donations, put it into the temple treasury, and you will see, fill my house with provision, my temple with provision, and then test me, and you'll see. And if I don't open up the heavens and rain down so much blessing that it'll be practically endless, it'll be more than enough, then I ain't Yahweh. Okay? And though I rebuke you with the devourer, which is the locust, as we shall see, though I have rebuked you with devour, now if you do this, it will not destroy the fruit of your fields, it won't destroy the grapevines, and all the nations will see this, and they will declare you. They will certify that you are happy. They will declare you as happy, and you will be in possession of a desirable land, says Yahweh Tzebaot. So that's the answer. That's the challenge. We see the same kind of structure that we've seen before. Challenge, response, and then kind of a rant about it or proof of it. Okay? Just like at the beginning, we saw Israel says to Yahweh, you say you love us. How do you know we love us? How do we know you love us? And then Yahweh answers, yeah, well, look at the difference between the nation I hate and the nation I love. I hate Esau, and I love you, and I love Israel. And look at Esau's land, the desolate wasteland. Look at your land, green and prosperous. Right? So that's the same kind of structure here. Okay? Yahweh this time comes to Israel. You're cheating. You are cheating me. What do you mean we're cheating you? Yeah, you're not bringing me my tithes and my donations. The entire nation. And put me to the test. Start bringing me those tithes and those donations, and you'll see that I'll open up the heavens and bless your land. All of the surrounding nations will see it and declare you as a happy people. Declare you as happy. Okay, I think the point is made. Questions, comments? We're going to know a little bit more in Malachi, and then we're going to finish off Leviticus chapter 23. Let's get a little commentary. That's it. So now we go into verse 14. So this now starts another dialectic. So now Yahweh again is putting Israel to the challenge. Your words upon me or against me have been strong, says Yahweh. Yet you say, what have we said against you? And you say, what have we said against you? Right? So Israel's always denying. So here Yahweh comes to Israel with the challenge. You guys are cheating me. And Israel says, what do you mean? How are we cheating you? And then Yahweh shows them exactly how they're cheating him. Same here. So Israel's like little, in these dialectics, or in some of these dialectics, Israel's like little kids, that are, what do you mean me? I didn't do anything. I didn't do nothing. Right? I didn't do nothing. Right? I'm innocent. Hey, you got nothing on me. Right? And then Yahweh chews them out and says exactly what he's got on them. Okay? Verse 14, Amartem, Shav, Avod Elohim, Ma Betza, Shemanu, Mishmarto, Yelachnu, Kidoranit, Mitnei Yahweh Tzebaot. So, because you say, so how have we spoken harshly against you? Okay, you've spoken harshly against me, says Yahweh. Israel responds, what do you mean we've spoken harshly against you? How have we spoken harshly against you? What have we ever said against you? And here's the answer. Amartem shav avod Elohim. You've said there's no use, there's no point in serving God. Ma betza kishamanu mishmaton. What advantage do we get by keeping his charge? V'chiyalachnu kidoranit. And that we go v'chiyalachnu kidoranit. Let's get a translation of the word Kedoranit. It's also an obscure word. Downcast. Okay, I like the translation. We can also look over here. Darkness, gloominess, Kedoranit, it only appears once. So that is called a hapax legomenon. That's the technical phrase for it. And it means a word that only appears once in a text. Okay, and it's very difficult to translate. So kadar or koder, even in modern Hebrew, means to make dark. So as mourners, darkness, gloominess. Robert Alter translates it as, where do we see it? downcast. Okay. So what advantage do we get by keeping his charge and that we walk like mourners or walk downcast before Yahweh Tzevaot? We get nothing by bothering ourselves to serve Yahweh. We don't get any advantage. That's how Israel has spoken against God. That's how Israel has used harsh words against Yahweh. And now there's that same word ma'ashrim. Now we're declaring those who deliberately go against God as happy. Gam nivnu osei rish'ah, and also we have built up those who do evil. Gam bachanu Elohim v'yamaletu, and also they have tested God and they have gotten away with it. All right, so let's pick this apart a little bit. Okay, let's get a translation from Robert Alter. And now we see the arrogant happy. Evildoers actually flourish, actually test God and escape. Let's go back to the Hebrew on that one. Nachnu mashrim zedim. So we declare those who, as we translate zedim, arrogant. Okay. Zedim means like without any shame doing wrongdoing. Zedim, they translated here as, let me look, the presumptuous. Okay, the arrogant, the presumptuous, the deliberately, like they shove it in God's face, like they have no shame whatsoever in doing evil, and we're declaring them as, or we are saying that they are happy. We're seeing them being happy. Okay, the arrogant happy. Okay. Gam nivnu osei rish'ah. Also, those who do evil are built up, or raised up. Okay. Actually test God in a state. Again, back to the Hebrew. Gam bachanu Elohim v'yamaletu. And even though they test God, they tested God, nonetheless they got away with it. They got off scot-free. Okay. Okay, so let's get a little context here. Actually, we can go on. Just 1 second here. We'll get a little commentary. If we walk downcast because of the Lord of armies, the Hebrew represented here, downcast, suggests something like gloomy. Literally comes from the root kuf daled resh, which means to darken or to be dark. The idea is contrition in the presence of God, which according to naysayers is pointless. Okay, that's what we said. Now we see the arrogant and happy. This subversive perception by the rebellious people turns out to be quite similar to the recurrent argument against the traditional moral calculus articulated in the book of Job. So basically what he's saying in a nutshell is that one of Job's points is that there's no justice. I, Job, am a person who does good, and look at all the horrible things that have happened to me. We know what happens to Job, and yet we see evildoers and they are rewarded. So what's the point of anything? That's essentially what Robert Alt is saying here. Okay, let's go on. We'll get to the end of chapter 3, and then we'll finish. Az nidbaru yirei Yahweh. So spoke those who fear God, who fear Yahweh, each person to his neighbor, Yakshev Yahweh Waishma. And Yahweh heard or paid attention and understood or and listened. Wayekatev Sefer Zikaron Lifanav. And in the book of remembrance, boy, is this a loaded phrase. We'll get to it in a second. Wayekatev Sefer Zikaron Lifanav. And it was written in the book of remembrance before him, Liyirei Yahweh, for the those who fear Yahweh, Ulachoshvei Shemo, and for those who take consideration of his name. So what the heck is going on here? All right, so let's try to get a flowing translation of this verse. Okay, so those who fear God. So in contrast to all of these evildoers who are spoken about above, okay, who say, what's the point of serving God? There are some who spoke to each other, those who fear God, they spoke to each other, and God heard them and paid attention. And they were written in the book of remembrance, before him. As God-fearing and those who have consideration for his name. So what is this Sefer Zikaron? Oh boy. So the rabbis associate, so the rabbis have made up a kind of myth out of this idea. And they say that on, do I even want to go down this route right now? Very briefly, they say that on Rosh Hashanah, which is their distortion of Yom Teruah, which is called, as we saw in Leviticus 23, Zikaron Teruah, and that's why they connect the two. On Rosh Hashanah, they say that the book of remembrance, let me get the exact phrase that they call it. 1 second here. Give me 1 second. I won't share the screen, so look it up for a second myself. Or maybe I'll just read it. Custom cleaning the shofar, etymology, origin, scholars of 4 New Years, significance, shofar blowing, prayer service, customs, symbolic foods, Karite Judaism. Oh wow. Okay, let's check one thing here. Just give me 1 second. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so I'll just read this. I'll put it on the screen. Hold on a second. Oh, you guys already seen it on the screen. It's on the right. Okay. So here we go. So religious significance. Rosh Hashanah is described in the Mishnah as the day when creatures pass before God like sheep, receiving their judgment. The Talmud expands on this with Tractate Rosh Hashanah, noting that Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda both Tanaim, that means from the time of the Mishnah, from the 2nd century CE during the Mishnaic period, agreed that humanity is judged on Rosh Hashanah. So the rabbis made up this idea that humanity is judged, that books are opened up, and that, well, let's read ahead. Furthermore, the Talmud, citing the opinion of Rabbi Kruspedai, nice Greek-sounding name, who in turn attributes his opinion to Rabbi Yochanan in Rosh Hashanah 16b12, states that 3 books of judgment are open on Rosh Hashanah. The books are inscribed with the fates of the individual's name, 1 for the completely wicked, a 2nd for the wholly righteous, and a 3rd for those in an intermediate moral state, I guess purgatory, all judged by God. The names of the entirely righteous are immediately inscribed in the book of the living, Sefer Chaim, and they are sealed for life. The intermediate group is given 10 days until Yom Kippur to reflect, repent, and become righteous. The wicked are blotted out of the book of the living, which is Rabbi Avin referencing 6929. Some midrashic descriptions depict God sitting on a throne before open books containing the deeds of all humanity, with each person passing before God for evaluation of their deeds. Rosh Hashanah, along with Yom Kippur, where it's identified as an anniversary holiday to reflect on the past only for the sake of the future, blah, 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 blah. Oops. Let's see, is anything else? Overarching incarnation. Okay, so the basic key here is that this Sefer Zikaron, right, this idea of being written in a book, there it's called the Sefer Chaim, being written in the book of life, according to rabbinical lore, which has absolutely no basis in the text of the Torah, that on Rosh Hashanah these books are opened up, the book of life, life, I guess the book of death, and then or the book of being blotted out, and then the names of the righteous are written immediately on Rosh Hashanah in the book of life. Those who are evil are written in the book of death immediately. And since I guess I'm a Karaite in the eyes of the rabbis, there's no more evil than myself, so I should have been written in the book of death a long time ago, yet I'm still here. And not just me, any other Karaite who also does not agree with this, I guess, or does not agree with rabbinical Judaism. And then the rest of the people have a 10-day period where they're supposed to repent and mourn, and then on Yom Kippurim, their fate is sealed, okay? In either the book of life or the book of death. So, and that idea is taken indirectly from this verse in Malachi, where those who fear Yahweh, okay, shall be written in the book of remembrance, the Fanav, before him, in the book of remembrance before God. Okay, so why is this relate to Rosh Hashanah? Because we saw that in Leviticus chapter 23, so there is no holiday in the Tanakh and the Torah known as Rosh Hashanah. There is actually a holiday. Rosh Hashanah actually means the first day of the first month, but it's not an outright Chag. It's not a Moed. It's not an official biblical holiday. But Yom Teruah, which occurs on the first day of the seventh month, which the rabbis call Rosh Hashanah, is called in Leviticus chapter 23 Zikaron Teruah, meaning a remembrance through noise making. We spoke about this a couple of weeks ago. You can look at the article I wrote about it on Karaite Insights if you wish. So the idea is that this book of remembrance is tied to Yom Teruah, the first day of the seventh month, because it's also called the Day of Remembrance, or Day of Remembrance through noise making, through shouting out to heaven. So they tie the two together, and again, they don't call the holiday Yom Teruah. They don't call it the day of, or Zikaron Teruah, the day of remembrance through shouting out to heaven, through calling out to heaven. They call it Rosh Hashanah, and so they said in Rosh Hashanah that this book, or a book like this, the book of remembrance before Yahweh, which they renamed the book of life or the book of death, is opened up on this holiday, which they call Rosh Hashanah, but which the Torah calls Zikaron Teruah, or Yom Teruah sometimes. And it's related, it's linked by this word Zikaron. So here it says the book of remembrance, which means, Zikaron means remembrance. And Leviticus chapter 23, the holiday is called Zikaron Teruah, the day of remembrance, Zikaron, that same word Zikaron. You can even see it for a second, and let me just point it out very clearly. In Leviticus 23, which will get us right into Leviticus 23, which is what we want to study. So Leviticus 23. Here, same word, Zikaron. You see it highlighted here. So this is the day of remembrance through shouting out to heaven. And here in Malachi, is it same word, Zikaron? Zikaron. You see it in both places, right? So they relate the two, and they come up with this legend. First of all, they rename or they rebrand Yom Teruah or Zikaron Teruah as Rosh Hashanah. And so they say on Rosh Hashanah, this book is opened up that's spoken about here, the book of remembrance, except they call it the book of life, or the book of life and the book of death. And so they come up with this legend, which has absolutely no basis in the Torah. It's a cute legend. I mean, I guess it's good for like little children to scare them shitless so that they behave themselves. But, we're adults. The Torah is, the rabbis always are talking down to the people. They treat the people as idiots. The Torah and the prophets never treat the people as idiots. They treat them as adults who are supposed to be responsible, who are responsible for their actions. And the Torah and the Tanakh, the prophets speak to the people straight, without having to give them these, BS little kiddie stories or, bubba mices, these little tales that grandma might tell in order to, scare them into doing things. And that's essentially what it does, right? So if you're told, and I've seen it with my own eyes since I'm a little kid, if you're told that on Rosh Hashanah, this holiday that the rabbis rebranded, rebranded Yom Teruah as, that a book is opened up in heaven, and you might be written in the book of life, or you might be written in the book of death. And it all depends on your deeds over the past year, but you have 10 days to repent before the book is closed and sealed. Man, that's gonna, if you believe that, which many Orthodox and maybe even some non-Orthodox, but mostly Orthodox rabbinical Jews believe, that's gonna scare the shit out of you. Excuse my French. Okay, so the rabbis are treating the people of Israel like little children that they have to scare with baba mices, with little stories. That's not what's going on at all in Yom Teruah. In Zikaron Teruah, what's happening is we are trying to call out to Yahweh, call out to heaven, and get him to pay attention to us, to remember us for our good deeds, so that when Yom Kippurim comes around, we ask him to forget our bad deeds, essentially. And again, the relationship there is really the entire context of Yom Teruah, Yom Kippurim, as we can see in Leviticus chapter 16, very clearly, is in relation to any misdeeds against the temple, such as not bringing the proper tithes, or bringing unclean animals, or not being in a state of ritual cleanliness, ritual purity when approaching the temple. And that's really what these holidays are about. But the rabbis take this figurative. Okay, this is meant to be figurative. It's not a literal book that's opened up in heaven. This is an allegory, right? This is a metaphor, and they take it, they literalize it, they relate it through this word zikaron from Malachi chapter 3 to Leviticus chapter 23 verse 24, and they make up this legend that God opens a book on Rosh Hashanah, which they've rebranded from Yom Teruah, and is sitting there writing names. It's almost like Santa Claus, right? He knows if you've been, what is it? He knows if you've been sleeping. Well, I forgot the song now. Thank God I forgot the song. Right? He knows if you've been good or bad, so be good for goodness sake. Oh, you better watch out. You better not cry. You better not pout. I'm telling you why. It's Rosh Hashanah, and God has opened up his book of life and death. So he's making a list. He's checking it twice. He's going to find out who's naughty and nice. Santa, God is coming to town. You see what they've done? They've turned God into like some stupid Santa Claus who's sitting there making lists of naughty and nice. That's a legend told to children to get them to behave. And that's very similar to the legend that's told to the entire Jewish people, who the rabbis have infantilized, who the rabbis have turned into little children who can only, be good if they're, treated like infants, if they're treated like little babies and told legends and told baba mices. That's the way that the rabbis treat them. Whereas the Torah does not do that at all. The Tanakh does not treat them that way at all. The Tanakh speaks straight out to them and speaks in it gives them agency and expects responsibility from them and treats them very much so as adults. Okay, end of my rant against the rabbis. Again, as I always say, yes, of course, purgatory is a very pagan concept. Absolutely. So, for sure. So, as I always say, I don't like to, when I do these studies, I don't like to, focus on rabbi bashing. It's not healthy. I think to focus on, bashing another sect. I'll call them a sect. We're not a sect, on bashing a sect. But as I always say, every Karaite Torah study should have a little bit of good rabbi bashing in there. Not too much. We should focus on the positive. We should focus on what the Torah is, what the Tanakh is, where the nation of Israel is standing right now, where it's heading. That should be always the focus, but you got to throw in a little bit of rabbi bashing. If for nothing else, it's fun. Okay, so that's my rabbi. Well, we did some rabbi bashing before when they told about how when we heard about how the Pharisees opened up the gates of Jerusalem and let the Romans in. Okay. Anywho, let's finish off Malachi here. So there's this allegory of a book of remembrance being opened up and names of those who fear Yahweh being written, their names being written in the book of remembrance. And that's clearly the same idea of Yom of Zikaron Teruah, where we shout out to Yahweh so he'll remember us, right? We want him to notice us. We want him to know our names. Yahweh, notice me, remember me. Okay, and if you remember me, if you know who I am, if you know me by name, then you're going to remember me, you're going to protect me, you're going to save me. It's the same allegory here. Okay? It doesn't literally mean that Yahweh is writing in a book. It's an allegory to express that idea of being remembered by name by Yahweh. In this case, who's being remembered by name? Those who fear Yahweh, le'yir'ei Yahweh, u'lechoshvei shmo, and who have cognizance, who are cognizant of his name, respectful perhaps of his name, thoughtful of his name. Okay, verse 17, let's finish this off. Wahayu li amar Yahweh tzvaot liyom asher ani oseh sigula. And so these people will be mine, says Yahweh tzvaot, on the day on which I make a treasure, which I make, in other words, when I turn my people into an am segulan, a treasured people. Okay, they'll be remembered and they will be made into a treasure. Chamalti alehem, ish al beno, and I shall have mercy upon them, as a man has mercy upon his son, ovedoto, who serves him, who's faithful to him. Okay, Wishavtim, horitem ben tzadik le rasha, and you shall return and you shall make a distinction. You'll see literally, you shall recognize the difference between the righteous person and the evil person. Ben oved Elohim lasher lo avado, between one who serves God and between one who does not serve him. Okay, so this is a kind of an end of days prophecy. As we can see, all of this is essentially an end of days prophecy, speaking about in the end of days, whenever that comes, that those who are righteous, those who make a distinction between evil and good, those who cling to the good and refrain from the evil, those who fear the name of Yahweh and who give recognition, who are cognizant of his name, they will be turned into a treasure, right? They will become part of the treasured nation. Israel is called an Am Segulah. And Yahweh will have mercy upon them. And they will come back, or then at that time they will be able to make a distinction between the good person and the evil person, and between he who worships God and who does not worship us. This is essentially an end of days prophecy, that the righteous shall have eternal life in a certain sense, or shall be rewarded and recognized by Yahweh. Let's get a little more commentary on that from Robert Alter. Okay, 17. It's so powerful. I love this book of Malachi. Okay, the day that I prepare. It's already in verse 17. Okay, so he translates that as prepare. So he translates that. Let's just get the translation here from Robert Alter, just to get a different translation from my own. Then the Lord fears speak together, each man to his neighbor, and the Lord hearkened, and he heard, and a book of remembrance was written before him. For the Lord fearers who value his name, and they shall become for me, said the Lord of armies, a treasure on that day that I prepare. Right? This is a reference in a certain sense to the great and terrible day of the Lord, which is spoken about in other places in the prophets. And I will have pity on them, as the man has pity on his son who serves him. And you shall turn back and see between righteous and wicked, between him who serves God and him who does not serve him. For look, that's already getting 19. Okay, so that's now, here they number it a little bit differently. Oh, what's going on here? Is there a verse missing? This is very strange. Where is it? That's very strange. Oh, I'm sorry, I went backwards. My bad. Okay. So here it speaks about the great and terrible day of the Lord. But we're going to continue this next time. We'll pick it up here next time. Okay? But let's get a little bit of commentary. So this is the day that I prepared, this prophetic day of the Lord, when the evildoers will be punished and the righteous redeemed. His son who serves him, what is envisaged is a stable social order in which sons dutifully serve their fathers. Malachi will give the theme of the union of fathers and sons a grand flourish in his concluding prophecy. And we'll get to that next week. That's a famous verse at the end of Malachi. Him who serves God, the service of son to father is now transposed into the service of God by man. At the beginning of the book, 1:6, God identifies himself as father to humankind. We saw that. If I am a father, then where is my honor? And if I am a master, where is the fear due to me? Okay. And then we get into, well, the numbering is just a bit different here. So this is the beginning really of chapter 4, but here there are different numbering systems depending on the text, and here they just number it as continuation of 3. So we're going to continue that next week. Let's finish off Leviticus chapter 23, even though I'm tempted to stop right now because it's late and we've been doing it a long time, but I really must finish off Leviticus 23. I don't want to linger anymore. And we didn't study Leviticus chapter 23 this week. So let's go back. Let me go back over here and see if there are any comments or any questions. Purgatory. So Tsuri says that purgatory is a pagan concept, very much so. Hello, sir. I'm really interested in Karaite Judaism since I find the Talmud and the rabbinic tradition to be against it. How can I contact the Qara'im? There's no Knesset nearby. Well, you can just email me. Okay? I'll just put it in my... You can just email me here. Actually, let me just copy and paste it. Give me 1 second. And then we'll talk by email. Okay? 1 second, please. Here. I'll give you both the email and my phone / WhatsApp. Post it. Okay, so feel free to contact me. No problem, man. All right, so we're going to go now to Leviticus chapter 23, and we'll finish it off. Let me close up Malachi. Just give me a minute. I'm not going to put music on because I want to get to finish chapter 23 already. So just give me a second to get everything set up here. You know what? I'll put on a song or so. So you guys don't have to watch me set up. It's going to be very boring. You're welcome. You don't have to call me sir. I have not been knighted by the king. Just call me bro. I'm okay with that. All right. So, yeah, let me put on a song. Give me a second here. And we'll get set up for Leviticus chapter 23.
חוג והים יגיע עד גדות תבל, נביא לנשם חול, לא רחוק נגבר, עלת ליבול וקץ לכל. רד עליי, בוא עטוף אותי עכשיו, עצום את שתי עיניים, רד לאט, עדן השמש אפל, שים ידך ביד הגשם הנופל ונופל. וענן יחום מעל ימי הים, יחום יום וליל, חום יחום ברוח מיילל, והים יגיע עד גדות תבל, נביא לנשם חול, לא רחוק נגבר, עלת ליבול וקץ לכל. גשם בוא, רד עליי, בוא כסה אותי עכשיו.
ראיתי שני דרורים עפים, מעץ התות אל גג הרעפים, הלוך ושוב, הלוך ושוב, כמו שני מטורפים. מראש התות רואים הם שדות עד שמש קם, מראש הגג רואים הם חולות עד שפת הים. רואים ולא יודעים מה להחליט, עפים הלוך ושוב ללא תכלית. וגם אני רוצה לעוף ללא תכלית, לקפוץ כנף וקצה ענף, לעוף בלי להחליט, לאן? לעוף מעל עצי הגן, מעל ענן, מעל הזמן, ותמיד לשוב לכאן. נה 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 נחוב מעל עצי הגן, מעל ענן, מעל הזמן, ותמיד לשוב לכאן. הנה זיכרונותיי עפים, אל יום אתמול אל רגעים יפים, הנה הם כאן, הנה הם שם, ואין הם מתעייפים. יום אתמול יביאו צבעים מעוני ארוך, בלילות יביאו שירים ומדורות, והיינו מאירים חלום ישן, הנה הם כאן כבר, הנה הם שם. וגם אני רוצה לעוף איתם לשם, לקפוץ כנף וקצה ענף, לעוף אל יום ישן, לעוף מעל עצי הגן, מעל ענן, מעל הזמן, ותמיד לשוב לכאן. נה נה
Okay, we are back. All right, let's continue in Leviticus chapter 23. All right. All right, we're going to continue and finish off Leviticus chapter 23. So let me share the screen properly here. And there we go. You should all see the screen. So we finished off last time with the summary sentence, or these summary sentences. Here, verse 37. I'll just translate them. I'm not going to read the Hebrew. So these are the appointed times, in other words, the yearly festivals, the yearly cycle festivals of Yahweh, that you should declare them as holy convocations, and you shall bring a fire offering to Yahweh, burnt offering or fully burnt offering, a grain offering, and other types of offerings, etc. And this is aside from the Shabbats of Yahweh, and aside from your gifts, meaning the gifts that you bring to the altar, bring the sacrifices, and besides the fulfillment of your vows, and besides your donations, which you shall give to Yahweh. Okay, so this is a summary sentence, and this is an afterthought. So we have a very interesting structure. I just want to point this out very briefly. We have a very interesting structure, and I mentioned this a number of times in Leviticus chapter 23. We have an introductory sentence here, right? Which is often, introductory sentences are often introduced by this phrase here. So Yahweh spoke to Moses saying, speak to the children of Israel and speak to them about the Moedei Yahweh. Moedei Yahweh, again, literally, it's usually translated as the appointed times. Maybe a better translation would be the meeting times. I like that better because the Ohel Moed is the tent of meeting. So Moed means like the meeting times of Yahweh, but very specifically it's speaking about the yearly cycle holidays, okay, of which there are precisely 5. Passover, I'm giving colloquial names, Shavuot, Yom HaTeruah, which the rabbis call Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippurim, which the rabbis call Yom Kippur, and Sukkot, Sukkot, okay? Those are the 5 Mo'adim. So after it speaks about the Mo'adim, it takes a sidetrack and speaks about the Shabbat. 6 days shall you do work, and on the 7th day you shall keep the Shabbat as a holy convocation, declaration of a holy day. Okay, and you shall not do any work on the Shabbat. So this we mentioned is not a Moed. The Shabbat is not a Moed, because Moed very specifically means a yearly holiday, but we said that the Torah works associatively. As I always like to say, that the Torah is the first hypertext markup language. It's the first website, in a sense, that it jumps associatively. It'll take a topic, it'll start discussing a topic, and then it'll bring in a topic that's related, but it's not exactly the same as the topic that is the main point. And that's exactly what Shabbat is. Shabbat is brought in not because it's a moed, it's not a yearly holiday, it's a weekly holiday, but it's brought in because it's like a yearly holiday in that it happens on a recurring basis. But it is not a moed. A lot of people will make a mistake and say that Shabbat is actually a moed. Okay, it's, again, a meeting, an appointed time of meeting, or an appointed meeting time, but it's not. It's like a moed, and it's brought here associatively. It's a hyperlink to a related topic. And now here in verse 4, the Torah gets back to its main topic. And how do we know it gets back to its main topic? Because it says, Yahweh. These are the appointed times, or these are the meeting times of Yahweh, the yearly meeting times of Yahweh, the declaration of holiness or declaration of holy days, which you shall declare on their proper meeting times. I'm paraphrasing a little bit there, but want to give the essence rather than the word-for-word translation. And then we go into the 5 holidays that we spoke about. And then down here, we get a summary sentence. Whoa. And then we get a summary sentence. Right? So these are the meeting times, the yearly meeting times of Yahweh, which you should declare them as holy convocations. It's a way to translate it. I've mentioned many times. I hate that translation, but let's go with it for now. Okay? So this is introducing the entire topic. Then it sidetracks to Shabbat over here, which is not a moed. And whenever I say the word moed, it means a yearly. It means a meeting, a meeting time, but it means a yearly meeting time, a meeting time on the yearly cycle. In other words, a holiday. Okay, a yearly holiday. Then after the sidetrack, now it gets into the beef of the matter, which is the actual 5 moedim. And then over here we get a summary sentence that these are the 5 moedim we spoke about. And it focuses here on bringing the fire offerings, but that also is kind of associated. But this is a summary sentence of the 5 moedim. And then it sidetracks again. And it sidetracks because the focus here, so each of these holidays, or many of these holidays, have other places where the details are given. So for instance, we mentioned in the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippurim, here we get the basic idea, important, but the basic idea of the holiday, which is fast. Don't do any work, don't do any milacha. And remember, we said that the only time that the words milacha are used rather than malachet avodah are for Yom Kippurim and for Shabbat. For all of the other 4 moadim, other 4 yearly holidays, the phrase malachet avodah is used, but only for the Shabbat and Yom Kippurim is malacha used. Also, only for the Shabbat and Yom Kippurim are actually called a Shabbat. We see it right here, Shabbat. Okay, none of the other holidays are ever called Shabbat. They may be called Shabbaton, but they're not called Shabbat. And there's only one other thing that's called Shabbat. We'll get to it in Leviticus chapter 25. Okay, so at any rate, the point being that here are the 5 moedim, and here's the summary sentence. And the focus here is really the sacrifices, the fact that sacrifices to be brought, a basic idea of what the holiday is, and to refrain from work. Okay, for all of the holidays. But it doesn't go into the details. So if you want to see the details of what happens on Yom Kippurim, you have to go to Leviticus chapter 16. We studied that last year. And it's the same thing here. It's over. This is the summary sentence of the 5 moedim. But then we get a sidetrack. We get details about Sukkot. So why is it not included here? Because it's not the context. So between here and here, okay, between here, where we get into the meat of the 5 festivals, we see that what's being focused on is a basic overview of what happens on the holiday, the fact that one should refrain from work, and then the fact that certain sacrifices, certain offerings should be brought on that day. And we get no further details. So now, but we have further details for each of the holidays, and here comes the further details for Sukkot over here. So it's outside of the part of this chapter that actually focuses on the 5 moedim. So this is, again, is a hyperjump. It's a hypertext link to a related topic. Here we spoke about the essence of Sukkot. Okay, first day is a Mikra Kodesh, is a holy convocation, 7 days. The 8th day is a holy convocation. You're supposed to bring certain fire offerings. Showing that actually doesn't mention the fire offerings here. You're supposed to refrain from work. Oh, it does right here. Okay, and the details of which fire offerings to be brought, which sacrifices to be brought, are elsewhere, and you're supposed to refrain from work. Okay. So here we're going to go into some of the details of Sukkot, what happens on these 7 days. Okay? So let's focus on that. So this is not part of the Moedim section. This is a hyperjump, hypertext link up, or hypertext link from the Moedim because it's related. It's going into the details. It's almost like a asterisk and then a footnote. Okay? So let's go through it very quickly. I want to finish off in about 15, 20 minutes. I hate to give Leviticus 23 short shrift, but we've spoken about it so many other times and in so many different contexts that I just want to finish it off. I want to go to Leviticus 24 next time already, because this is the 8th week we've spent on Leviticus chapter 23, which is good. We've focused on other things. Let me just check in and see if there are any comments or questions. and they're not. Okay, so ach, okay, and we have this word ach, so but, so this kind of links it as a hyperlink. We saw this word before in a slightly different context, where is it? Right here. This links Yom Teruah, or Zikaron Teruah, to Yom Kippurim with the Ach, and we see that this means that these two holidays are related. We know for other reasons that they're related, because they both occur within 10 days of each other, within 9 days of each other, right? Yom Teruah, or Zikaron Teruah, occurs on the first day of the 7th month, and Yom Kippurim occurs on the 10th day of the 7th month. So they're related temporally as well. But here, the Ach, which is calling a relationship between what was previously said, and here is the expansion of the details of what happens on the Sukkot after the basic details were given within the part of this chapter, or the part of this in the Hebrew text, Parshat Ptucha, this basic Hebrew chapter of the 5 holidays itself, 5 yearly cycle holidays. Okay, so b'chamisha asar yom lechodesh hashvi'i. So, but, or in addition, I'll translate it that way, on the 15th day, in the Chodesh HaShvi'i of the 7th month, which we saw right up above is Sukkot, we saw it right here. Okay. Okay. Oops. Right here. Chamisha Asar Yom LeChodesh HaShvi'i, on the 15th day of the 7th month. And here, so, and furthermore, on this 15th day of the 7th month, so when you bring in the produce of your land, so that we see right here that this is a harvest festival. This is a fall harvest festival. It's exactly what it is. Many ancient cultures, and even some modern cultures, still have fall harvest festivals. It's a very common thing. But the Torah, as we've said many times, is it takes that which is common in the ancient Near East, and it Yahwehifies it. It makes it in some way appropriate to a nation, a nation that is, that is serving Yahweh, right? That is serving the God of righteousness, that is serving the God of wisdom, that is serving a single God rather than a pantheon of gods. Okay, so how does the festival holiday, how does this harvest holiday, how does this harvest festival work in the Torah? Hogu et Hag Yahweh Shivat Yamim. So you shall celebrate et Hag Yahweh Shivat Yamim. So Hag, again, that the underlying root Hag means a circle. So celebrate is such a horrible translation. I think if I can find a better translation, you shall. The Hogu, I don't know. I guess we're just going to have to go with celebrate. How they translate here. Keep, man, that's also a horrible translation. How does Everett Fox, we haven't used him for a while. He's 39. He's pretty darn good. Mark on the 15th day of the 7th new moon, when you've gathered in the produce of the land, you just, okay, to celebrate as pilgrimage, the pilgrimage festival of Yahweh. So you sing Chag is a pilgrimage festival, but really it comes, the underlying root, at Gimel, this word right here, means a circle. So it's another reference to a yearly holiday. So, okay, I guess we're just going to have to go with celebrate. So you shall celebrate this year cycle holiday of Yahweh for 7 days, Shivat Yamim. B'yom Rishon Shabbaton, or B'yom Shmini Shabbaton. So on the first day, it's a Shabbat-like holiday, or a resty kind of day. And on the 8th day, it's a resty kind of day. Again, realize here, it never says a Shabbat. There are only 3 things in the Torah that are ever called Shabbat. And this is why the rabbis are wrong about when they said that the Omer offering is supposed to be brought L'macharat Shabbat. There's absolutely no way. They claim that the first day of, it's so silly, it's ridiculous, but they claim that the first day of what we call Passover, of Chag HaMatzot, the festival of unleavened bread, is called a Shabbat, and therefore, when it says that the Omer offering, which we saw up above here in Leviticus chapter 23, is to be brought on the day after the Shabbat, that means the 2nd day of Passover. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. There is no way that the first day of Passover could ever be called a Shabbat. And we see here evidence of that in the fact that that's the first and seventh and eighth day of Sukkot, they're not called a Shabbat, they're called a Shabbaton. And there's a big difference between a Shabbat and a Shabbaton. Just as a big difference between Melacha and Melechet Avodah. Shabbat goes with Melacha, Shabbaton goes with Melechet Avodah. We see that both Melechet Avodah and Shabbaton are sing-songy, which implies less to the point, where Shabbat and Melacha are terse. They're right to the point, onomatopoeically. Say that 10 times quickly. Onomatopoeically, and I'm sorry if I'm going over some people's heads, but I just want to get through this. Onomatopoeically, that implies that on the Shabbat, there's a more strict restriction against work, and that on the Shabbatons, there's a less strict restriction against work, and so the Shabbaton is associated with this more sing-songy Melechet Avodah. Okay, enough said about that. Sorry if I don't have time to go into that, but I've gone into it in previous talks. Last week, the week before. So that's the idea. So on the first day is a resty type of day. You take off, it's a day off, and on the eighth day is a day off. I don't want to say Shabbat. It's not a day of rest. It's a rest-like day or a resting day, a day of resting, let's say. Not a day of rest, but a day of resting. The difference, even in the English, right? Oh boy, we could spend hours on this. Eitz Hadar, Kapot Temarim, Anaf Eitz Avot Be'arve Nachal. So on the first day, or by the first day. So when it says on the first day, it does not mean on the first day. It means by the first day. And I could prove this. Prove this very easily, and I'll do it right now. To do so, we're going to go to, if my memory serves me correctly, Exodus chapter 13. Let's just find it. I might be wrong. 1 second. Second. It might not be good. 1 second. Give me 1 second. I'm going to find it. It's an important point. 1 second. Exodus 12:15. So Exodus 12:15, speaking about Passover. So Shiv'at Yamim Matzot Tochelu. So for 7 days you must eat unleavened bread. Meaning, if you're going to eat bread, it must be unleavened. Ach b'yom rishon tashbitu or mi batechem. But on the first day you must remove. You must cause to cease. Same root as Shabbat. You must cause to cease leavening agents, sourdough starter essentially, from your houses. I'll just translate. You must remove all leavening agent. Must remove all yeast from your leavening agent from your house. Okay? And it says on the first day. But does that make any sense? You can't do it on the first day of Chag HaMatzot, because on Chag HaMatzot it's already supposed to be gone. The leavened bread is already supposed to be gone when Chag HaMatzot starts, when the festival of unleavened bread starts. So this could not possibly mean on the first day to remove the leavening agents from your home. It must mean by the first day. Yet the prefix here is ba. Ba is usually translated on, but it can mean a lot of things. On, by, a bunch of different things depending on the context, okay? But this proves that here it doesn't mean on, rather, but by. So by the first day, you must have removed all of the leavening agents from your house, because when the first day of Chag HaMatzot comes in, it's got to be kosher for Passover. Everything, you can only have unleavened bread and no leavening agents in your house, okay? So we see that again here in Leviticus 23, we see the same phrase. So it doesn't mean you shall take on the first day. It means by the first day. And that's very important to understand the typical Karaite, or the traditional, which I agree with, traditional Karaite understanding of this verse here. So if it means on the first day, then the rabbis have it right. or maybe have it right, or there's more of a cause to defend their case. So let's see, what are we talking about? Shaking the lulav. Get a picture. So this nonsense. Okay, so how does rabbinical Judaism work? Here's a nice looking happy rabbi, probably Chabadnik, and he's got a $400 lemon, $100 or a $50 bunch of myrtle. I'm sorry, a $50 palm frond, a $20 bunch of myrtle, and some willows of the brook, some willow brooks that he bought for $1. Okay, the guy's put out $500 if he's serious to buy a lemon. Okay, what a racket, man. Rabbi bashing again. Sorry about that. Anywho, so, but what they believe is that starting on the first day, you take these, they call it the 4 species, arba'at minim, the 4 species, and you shake them. And when we used to do this in Hebrew school when I was growing up in my conservative synagogue in the suburbs of New York, our teacher, Mr. Cohen, who was an interesting guy, I liked him, not as much as Rabbi Safir, who was the head of the school, and he was like a father or grandfather to everyone. Everybody loved him, such a sweet guy. At any rate, Mr. Cohen would always make us sing, shake, 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 shake your lulav. So shake, 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 shake your lulav, shake your lulav, shake, 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 shake your lulav. At any rate, neither here nor there, just bringing back some childhood memories. But the point being that the rabbis believe that you take these 4 species and you hold them together and you shake them in the 6 directions, the 6 cardinal directions, which is again a Greek/Roman concept: the east, the west, the north, the south, and then up and down. Okay, I'm not saying that 4 directions aren't mentioned in the Tanakh. They are, but this whole idea of the 6 directions, the 6 cardinal directions, is a Greek/Roman idea. Okay, so that's what you're supposed to do according to the rabbis. Just check in. And oh my, I see the audience is dwindling because we've spent too long on this. So maybe I really should continue it next week. And it's getting late. I hate to do it, but we're going to do it. All right, we'll pick this up next week. We're going to pick this up in verse 40. All right, that's the way it goes. I'm ending the study. The audience has gone down significantly. I understand these are long studies and they're very detailed, but I think it's enough for today. I'm tired. I want to go make my Motzei Shabbat nachos and cheese, which I've been planning all week, and just enjoy some downtime. So, all right, everybody, let's end it here. We'll pick it up here. Let me just make a note for myself that we're picking it up in verse 40 next week, and that'll be the 9th week we spent on Leviticus 23, but, c'est la vie. 1 second. Okay. All right, everyone. Any final questions, any final comments before we call it a day? We've been going at it for over 3 hours, and it's enough. It's enough for me. It's enough for you guys. So we're going to end it for today. We'll pick it up next week. Be'ezarat Yahweh, with the help of Yahweh. Any final questions or comments? Anybody? Going once? Going twice? Going thrice? So if there are no comments or questions, then I want to thank you all for joining us here at the World Alliance of Qara'im Shabbat Torah study. There's many. You could go look at the original blurb, and you'll see there are many ways to get in contact with us. We have WhatsApp groups, we have Facebook groups. We're starting to build out our X/Twitter presence, our Instagram presence, and our TikTok presence to get the word out even more. We have a Patreon set up, so I'm asking everybody, if you feel that you get value out of the World Alliance of Qara'im, please join. We've instituted a cost to be a member of the World Alliance of Qara'im, and this is for a very specific reason. For years, I've been relying on people's voluntary donations or begging people to donate so that we can have a budget, and most people I found out are a bunch of freeloaders, So I said, enough is enough. I got pissed off, and I said, that's it. I'm going to set up a membership with a cost. So not to put anyone down at all. I'm very happy to have everyone here. The Shabbat Torah studies will always be free, but if you feel you get value out of these Torah studies, and if you believe in our mission, the World Alliance of Qara'im, I'm asking everybody to join. It's a very modest amount. It's probably, if you live in the United States, much less than you pay for your cell plan each year. And if we get enough people to join, this really allows us to have a budget where we can start doing things. I have a lot of plans that I want to get going over the next year, couple of years, and one of them is to set up a physical Karaite community, World Alliance of Qara'im community here in World Alliance of Qara'im community here in Israel in the Golan Heights. I'd like to set up an adult learning center, yeshiva, for lack of a better word. I'd like to set up eventually education system for children. All of these kinds of things. I'd like to get the word out. It's so important, not for me. I honestly believe this from the bottom of my heart. For the nation of Israel, this is the future of the nation of Israel. The people of Israel must return from their false belief systems and come back to the true Torah. And so it's extremely important. So if you believe in the mission, please, I'm going to post a link here. Join us. I've made it so that there's specific benefits. So if you join the World Alliance of Qara'im, you'll have access to a special WhatsApp group for members, and we will do special Torah studies for just members of the World Alliance of Qara'im. But these Shabbat studies will always remain free. I hate to put things behind a paywall. It's not my nature. It's never been my nature. But the bottom line is I'm sick and tired of begging people for money over years and then having no one respond. So yeah, I'm putting a little bit of incentive behind it, and I'm asking people to pay a modest fee each month to show that you're serious about Karaitism, supporting the World Alliance of Qara'im, and the entire budget goes towards the programs and the programs we want to run and the things that we want to do. So please consider joining. Enough of that. No more sales pitches. I hate them myself. I can't stand them. But you got to do it. We live in the real world. I wish I were a multimillionaire. I wish I'd invested in Bitcoin when it was worth $8, and I wish I'd invested in gold. I did invest in some gold when it was worth $1,800, and silver when it was $20. But then maybe I would be able to put millions of dollars into it myself. But that ain't the case. So I have to rely on you guys. It's good for you guys as well, right? Everybody, it should be a joint project, not just a one-man show. So thank you very much for joining us. We're going to end here. And B'ezrat Yahweh, with the help of Yahweh, we'll see you all next week. I wish everybody a Shabbat Shalom and a Shavua Tov, a good Shabbos and a good week, depending where you are in the world. And as always, we'll go out with some nice Hebrew and Israeli music. So thanks again for joining us. Shabbat Shalom and Shavua Tov.
כתמר יפרח יפרח, צדיק כתמר יפרח, צדיק כתמר יפרח יפרח, צדיק כתמר יפרח, כארץ בלבנון תזכה, כארץ בלבנון תזכה, כארץ בלבנון תזכה יזכה, כארץ בלבנון תזכה, כארץ בלבנון תזכה, כארץ בלבנון תזכה יזכה. צדיק כתמר יפרח יפרח, צדיק כתמר יפרח, צדיק כתמר יפרח יפרח, צדיק כתמר יפרח, כארץ בלבנון יזכה, כארץ בלבנון יזכה, כארץ בלבנון יזכה יזכה, כארץ בלבנון יזכה, כארץ בלבנון יזכה, כארץ בלבנון יזכה יזכה. כתמר יפרח יפרח, צדיק כתמר יפרח, צדיק כתמר יפרח יפרח, צדיק כתמר יפרח, כארץ בלבנון תזכה, כארץ בלבנון תזכה, כארץ בלבנון תזכה יזכה, כארץ בלבנון תזכה, כארץ בלבנון תזכה, כארץ בלבנון תזכה יזכה.
שיר למעלות, אשא עיניי אל ההרים, מאין יבוא עזרי, עזרי מעם השם, עושה שמיים וארץ, אל ייתן למות רגליך, אל ינום שומרך. הנה לא ינום ולא ישן שומר ישראל, השם שומרך, השם צילך, על יד ימינך. יומם השמש לא יככה וירח בלילה, השם ישמורך מכל רע, ישמור את נפשך, השם ישמור צאתך ובואך, מעתה ועד עולם. שיר למעלות, אשא עיניי אל ההרים, מאין יבוא עזרי, עזרי מעם השם, עושה שמיים וארץ, אל ייתן למות רגליך, אל ינום שומרך. הנה לא ינום ולא ישן שומר ישראל, השם שומרך, השם צילך, על יד ימינך. יומם השמש לא יככה וירח בלילה, השם ישמורך מכל רע, ישמור את נפשך, השם ישמור צאתך ובואך, מעתה ועד עולם. שומר ישראל, השם שומרך,
השם צילך על יד ימינך. יומם השמש לא יככה וירח בלילה, השם ישמורך מכל רע, ישמור את נפשך, השם ישמור צאתך ובואך מעתה ועד עולם. אוי 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 שיר למעלות, אשא עיניי אל ההרים, אוי מאין יבוא עזרי, עזרי מעם השם עושה שמיים וארץ, הניתן למות רגליך, אל ינום שומרך. אוי 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 שיר